Chapter 13-17. However, when he found out that this soul Douluo admitted defeat because of his looks, he felt that he couldn't do anything to someone of this level. Furthermore, he couldn't beat her. Wang Feng was very satisfied, although he didn't really want his opponent to admit defeat, if it was because of this reason. Wang Feng felt that it was understandable. Wang Feng, who was the first to walk down the stage, didn't leave immediately. Instead, he continued to watch the matches on the stage. There were more than 200 people, but only about 100 matches. However, they were divided into 2 batches because they were worried that the arena wasn't big enough. This was because the scale of the battles between Soul Masters was huge. Every match was like this. Compared to the beginning, each match took up a larger area. Even the sky was densely packed with light shadows. Coincidentally, Wang Feng happened to see Green Jade in the midst of these battles. However, he didn't see the Ice Emperor. It was a pity. Qing Yu is a soul beast that has recultivated. Her cultivation is at the level of a soul Douluo. It doesn't seem high. Wang Feng stared at her. He had already seen it several times. However, Qing Yu won the previous few matches with ease. She was somewhat similar to the Silver Dragon. However, she was far inferior to the Silver Dragon. Most of the Silver Dragon's matches were playful. To her, participating in this kind of competition was more interesting than fighting. Therefore, she was playing most of the matches. Wang Feng wasn't too sure about her motive. As for Green Jade's matches, most of them ended within 10 moves. There was one titled Douluo, 2 Soul Douluo, and several Soul Sages. She fought all of them herself. She didn't let the Ice Emperor appear, nor did she let the other soul-carving beast appear. It could be said that no one had discovered that Qing Yu was also a soul-carving master. At the same time, Qing Yu's martial soul was the Green Lantern Ice Jade Pufferfish, which was also her martial soul. However, this Green Lantern Ice Jade Pufferfish was much stronger. It was a dual attribute martial soul of ice and fire. Furthermore, it was a martial soul of 2 opposing attribute. To a certain extent, it was somewhat similar to the Shi Douluo's yin-yang origin. Qing Yu's unique martial soul made her so powerful. Over the past 10,000 years, there were still soul beasts that had undergone metamorphosis, but only 1 or 2 were as powerful as Qing Yu. However, most of them didn't end up well. They all died in the war. This time, Qing Yu's opponent wasn't simple. He was a rank 94 titled Dalu. I want to see if you can still come out this time. This Ice Empress has been hiding it all this time, and she has ulterior motives. Is she up to something? Wang Feng thought to himself. Qing Yu had only just become a soul Douluo. It was very difficult to become a rank 94 titled Douluo. Even though Renyuha had a chance of defeating a titled Douluo before this, his chances weren't very high. Against a rank 94 titled Douluo, he didn't stand a chance at all. A titled Douluo's soul core would greatly suppress Renyuha's martial soul. However, he still had a chance of defeating a soul master who had just become a titled Douluo. Wang Feng was a little familiar with this titled Douluo. This was because his martial soul was the 7 Kills sword. He was the descendant of the sword Douluo Chun Xen from 10,000 years ago. Speaking of which, Wang Feng couldn't help but admire Bibidan's strategy back then. Family planning. It allowed many lonely titled Douluo to find suitable partners and pass on their outstanding descendants. In the current Federation's evaluation of Bibidan's achievements back then, this was a huge contribution and could be considered one of the top 3. It was important to know that many of the new martial souls today were essentially the descendants of these outstanding martial souls. They mutated as the times changed. They didn't appear out of thin air. The mutation of martial souls was similar to the development of humans back then. For example, the Sky Ruins Sword Martial Soul. Thousands of years ago, the Sky Ruins Sword Martial Soul slowly mutated from the 7 Kills sword. However, it mutated into the Sky Ruins Sword Martial Soul in different environments. Similarly, many martial souls today were the same. There were also some that didn't mutate and were directly inherited. For example, the 7 Kills Sword, the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon, the Fire Phoenix, and so on. But in fact, if one looked carefully, one would realize that these martial souls were more or less slightly different from the martial souls from 10,000 years ago. The 7 Kills Sword has a matching 7 Kills Sword technique and a cultivation technique that the sword Douluo didn't have. The current 7 Kills Sword martial soul is much stronger than it was 10,000 years ago. Wang Feng sighed. Those people from 10,000 years ago were limited by their talent. After the Federation was established, they could only live freely on the continent for the rest of their lives. They had no regrets. For example, the sword Douluo, the bone Douluo, Dugu bow, and so on. The sword Douluo actually had a chance to become a god. He was more talented and only needed Little Three and the others to help him in the god realm. However, with the sword Douluo's pride, he might not need it. In the end, Wang Feng guessed that he should have become a god. As for what god position he was in, he didn't know. As for the bone Douluo and Dugu bow, they were the representatives of carefree. After the two of them found their partners in the next few decades, they passed on their descendants and then traveled the continent. They might have even gone to the Sun-Moon Empire from 10,000 years ago. These were all things that Tang San and the others talked to Wang Feng in front of the Divine Mountain before they were about to fly to the God realm. As for the others, such as Master Flanders and Lu Erlong, they all lived perfect lives. It was impossible to make them all become gods. Their talent was limited. Even if Tang San went against his principles and made them become gods, they might not end well. Because even if they became gods, they could only be gods who weren't qualified. They might not be as carefree as they were on the Douluo continent. Moreover, with their personalities, they were not the kind of people who pursued power. They would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. So they didn't become gods. Wang Feng shook his head. After thinking for a while, he felt like he had returned to 10,000 years ago. Then, he looked at the 7 Kills Sword Soul Master. This 7 Kills Sword Soul Master came from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect. He was in his 50s and was very talented. His name was Jianli, and he was a direct descendant of the sword Dalu. He was much stronger than the sword Dalu. The 7 Kills Sword was an extremely strong offensive martial soul. Normal martial souls couldn't match it. This was especially true for titled Dalu. In addition to the appearance of the soul core, the martial soul true body, and the creation of the talent domain, it was very difficult to defeat a titled Dalu. A soul master's rank 70 was a qualitative change. Rank 90 was a nuclear change. Once the soul core appeared, the talent domain would appear. The martial soul true body would go from manual to automatic. Its abilities would change drastically. Apart from spiritual type soul masters, it was very difficult to defeat a titled Dalu. Even spiritual type soul masters could rarely defeat a titled Dalu. Wang Feng focused and watched. As soon as the battle began, the 7 Kills Sword martial soul unleashed its martial soul true body. Because of the appearance of the soul core, soul masters didn't have to fuse with their martial souls. They had more methods to deal with their enemies. The 7 Kills Sword emphasized strength and intent. As he looked at the 7 Kills Sword, which was a little different from 10,000 years ago, Wang Feng started to reminisce. The 7 Kills Sword technique. Wang Feng still remembered it. After that, he changed it to the 7 Kills Sword technique. Now that he saw this ancient sword technique again, although it had changed completely. However, the aura in his bones was still there. With the 7 kills in my heart, the sword crosses the line between good and evil. It's a pity that this sword technique is strong, but it lacks intent. Wang Feng looked at it for a few seconds and sighed softly. P.S. Today's update is 4, tomorrow's update is 6, and now it's 5 every day. Chapter 13-18. Wang Feng felt a lot of emotions as he looked at this familiar sword technique. However, it was more because this 7-kill sword technique was already very different from the sword Douluo's 3 moves. His descendants must have made some changes based on the foundation. In terms of strength, it was much stronger than the sword Douluo's. There were even 2 additional moves based on the first 3 moves, making it a total of 5 moves. Although it was not as powerful, it was still a match for the strength of a titled Dalu. The sword moves were powerful enough, and with the changes from his soul core and martial soul true body, they were naturally much stronger than before. In the arena, Chen Xian's descendant is still very strong. Although Jianli was only rank 94, Qing Yu was already having a hard time fighting him with the strength of the 7-kill sword and the moves that came with it. He was no ordinary titled Dalu. However, Wang Feng also discovered that Qing Yu's body was very special. Her body was capable of switching between 2 types of attribute. She could switch from extreme ice to extreme fire. This allowed her soul skills to have 2 opposite elements, which was similar to Ma Xiaotao's. But the difference was that Ma Xiaotao relied on the ice fox to do this. However, Qing Yu originally had this ability. Although she specialized in human cultivation, it was obvious that she had consumed some rare treasures to retain the characteristics of a soul beast. In the arena, Bing Bing, if you don't come out now, I'm going to lose. Qing Yu waved her hand, and the ice walls in all directions blocked the sword lights in front of her. No, we can't expose ourselves so early, the Ice Emperor said. Wang Feng must be watching. He might be waiting for me to come out. I can't let him discover me so early. This human soul master is very strong. Then let Xiao Yanyan come out. No, Xiao Yanyan is like me. We have to use it as a trump card. We can't let Wang Feng see it. Otherwise, we won't be able to take advantage of him. If we lose here, we won't be able to meet him, Qing Yu said helplessly. Qing Yu, you're so strong. How can you be defeated by a human soul master? You have 200,000-year soul rings, the Ice Emperor said in disdain. But this human also has 100,000-year soul ring. Do you know what kind of soul ring it is? It's the saber-tooth amber beetle. This martial soul's attack power is extremely strong. Even if I were a soul beast in my original body, I would only have a 60% chance of winning at most, Qing Yu said in annoyance. Oh wait, let me think. I remember that I've seen this soul master's moves before. At this moment, the Ice Emperor suddenly said, when Wang Feng and my sister were being intimate, he helped my sister improve many of her moves. He demonstrated many of his moves, and there seems to be a way to counter these 3 moves. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qing Yu was taken aback for a moment. How could I have thought of that so quickly? I hated that period of time the most. The Ice Emperor snorted coldly. Hurry up and tell me. All right. I remember. These 3 moves seem to be called Sword Raises Duckweed, 7 Emotions Soul Extinguishing, and Sword Breaks Southern Mountain. This soul master used 2 more moves, and I've seen them before. But as long as the first 3 moves are countered, the remaining 2 moves won't be very powerful. Wang Feng said that these 3 moves are at their strongest when used together. If only one move is used, it won't have that kind of concept, and its power will be greatly reduced. Hey, you still remember it clearly. Qing Yu's tone carried a hint of ridicule. Nonsense, don't tell me you don't remember the people you hate? Qing Yu secretly shook her head as she listened to the Ice Emperor explain the method to counter the Soul Master's moves. She was an extremely intelligent person, so she understood it very easily. Qing Yu, who was pressured to the point that she couldn't breathe, finally heaved a sigh of relief. Now that there was a way to counter the Soul Master's moves, it was much better. On the other side, Wang Feng was suddenly stunned. According to his estimation, Qing Yu couldn't resist Jian Li's attacks at all. Under normal circumstances, she should have called out her 2 soul-bonded beasts. But suddenly, Qing Yu seemed to have transformed into an expert swordsman and easily countered Jian Li's sword moves. The 7 kills swordplay was a sword technique, so naturally, there would be a way to counter it. However, it was difficult for a soul master who wasn't proficient in swordsmanship to counter it. If you didn't understand swordsmanship, it was naturally difficult to counter it. However, Qing Yu seemed to have been possessed by an expert who was proficient in swordsmanship. She actually countered the first 3 moves of Jian Li's 7 kills swordplay. Hiss! Is this Qing Yu also a genius? Wang Feng was extremely surprised. She can think of a way to counter the Soul Master's moves in such a short time. Her talent is actually comparable to mine. She's not simple. Back then, Wang Feng was able to learn the 7 kills swordplay by relying on the sword Douluo's demonstration. He relied on his dustless glass body at that time, which had undergone countless transformations and cultivated a powerful technique to be able to learn the Soul Master's moves easily. He didn't expect Qing Yu to be so talented as a soul beast. In a battle between experts, a slight mistake could lead to a huge mistake. His sword moves were countered, and his aura was greatly reduced. This was a huge blow to Jianli. In the arena, Jianli was drenched in cold sweat as he looked at his opponent. He was panting heavily, and the 7 kills sword that was dozens of meters long beside him had already weakened. Jianli opened his mouth and said stiffly, "The 7 kills sword has always been the 7 kills sword. The 7 annihilation swordplay has always been passed down to a single disciple and has never been exposed to the public. How did you know about my Jian clan's 7 annihilation swordplay?" "I don't know," Qing Yu said. "If you don't know, how could you possibly know how to counter it?" Jian Li's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. "Could it be that you managed to counter the Jian family's 7 kills swordplay in less than 10 minutes of battle? The Jian family's 7 kills swordplay has been improved several times. Without in-depth research, how could it be countered?" "Maybe I'm a genius," Qing Yu said with a smile. Jian Li was silent. Genius. This world didn't lack geniuses, nor did it lack geniuses who learned the way of the sword. It was said that the ancestor of the Jian family, Sword Dao Chen Xin, had once demonstrated the 7 kills swordplay to the white-clothed Popediff, and it was immediately learned. It wasn't impossible for a genius like that to counter the Jian family's 7 kills swordplay in a short battle. When he thought of this, Jian Li suddenly felt that he had let down his ancestor. His talent was really too poor. Qing Yu looked at Jian Li's doubtful face and couldn't help but laugh. "Forget it. I was just lying to you. Someone did tell me how to counter the 7 kills swordplay. However, I won't say who that person is." No. You don't have to comfort me. There are naturally geniuses in this world." Jian Li took off his number plate and sighed. "I can only blame myself for being too weak. I lost this battle." Qing Yu was speechless. Ha ha ha, this human soul master is really stupid. He actually believed it. The Ice Emperor laughed. End of chapter. Chapter 13-19. It's all your fault. If you came out directly and won, he wouldn't be like this. No matter if it's a human or a soul beast, there will be bottlenecks in cultivation. This human soul master might have developed an inner demon because of this, and it will be hard for him to break through. Qing Yu was speechless. That's his own fault. If it's so easy to develop an inner demon, then it's because of his talent. Don't tell me that we have to worry about whether our opponent will develop an inner demon after we defeat him? I, Ice Emperor, am not a kind soul. Ice Emperor sneered. I can't win against you. Qing Yu smiled. When we meet Wang Feng, I think he will teach you a lesson. Qing Yu, you are my soul master. How can you say such things? If there is a lesson, it should be me teaching him a lesson. Ice Emperor said unhappily. The two of them were talking non-stop. Sister Bing. Sister Bing. Why did you teach that human called Wang Feng a lesson? In another soul domain, a timid voice came out. Didn't he save you? And he saved many of our 100,000-year soul beasts? That's a different matter. But that doesn't stop me from hating him. Ice Emperor explained. No. I don't understand. Qing Yu smiled mysteriously. Little Yen Yen, let me tell you. This is called love-hate relationship among humans. Bullshit. Ice Emperor was stunned at first, then he raged. Qing Yu, stop talking nonsense. Who love-hate relationship with him? It doesn't make sense, don't use human words. I didn't use it. Qing Yu smiled. I meant that he and your sister love each other, and you hate each other. Did you misunderstand something? Aya, don't tell me you think I'm only talking about you and him? Ice Emperor. After watching Qing Yu's match, Wang Feng went to Shrek's team to check on Jiang Nannan. After seeing that she was fine, he continued to watch the match. In the following matches, there was one that Wang Feng found interesting. It was the expert from the Illusionary Moon Sect. This level 99 expert from the Illusionary Moon Sect had extraordinary strength and a handsome appearance. He had a killing intent that could kill both men and women. His strength was also unfathomable. To be more precise, these powerhouses from the gods' land of inheritance were all terrifyingly powerful. In the first 8 rounds, he didn't even use his martial soul before his opponents lost. In particular, these experts more or less had ancient divine artifacts in their hand. These divine tools were even more frightening than soul tools. Coincidentally, this powerful individual from the Mirage Moon Sect also met a rank 96 titled Douluo in the 9th round. Moreover, it was an expert from the Shadow Source sect that Wang Feng was familiar with. No matter what, a rank 96 titled Douluo would more or less be able to make this rank 99 Douluo reveal some of his abilities. That was the truth. It was also the first time that the martial spirit of the Illusionary Moon Sect had appeared. This martial soul was not simple. It was so simple that Wang Feng couldn't tell what this martial soul was at first. Until, when the battlefield was completely engulfed in darkness, Wang Feng finally understood what his martial soul was. It was a black hole. To be precise, it was a martial soul that even light couldn't escape from. It wasn't a real black hole. The moment his martial soul appeared, everything around him became extremely dark. He couldn't even see what his martial soul was. Wang Feng guessed that it was a special celestial martial soul similar to a black hole, but he didn't know what it was exactly. The continent hadn't completely developed soul tool technology yet, and their understanding of the universe was still very small. Logically speaking, if such a martial soul really appeared, it would be ahead of time. Of course, Wang Feng also suspected that it might be some other unknown martial soul. Anyway, once it appeared, no one could see clearly what was happening inside. The moment that martial soul appeared, it fused with its surroundings, and nothing could be seen. After that, it was quiet for less than a minute. The darkness faded, and only the rank 96 Soul Master was left lying on the ground. He lost just like that. Even Wang Feng's spiritual power couldn't sense what had happened. It was very strange, but also very powerful. This was the first time this martial soul from the Illusionary Moon Sect had appeared. However, it made Wang Feng curious. Wang Feng reckoned that it wasn't just him. The Douluo Heavenly Kings and the other experts weren't too sure either. After watching the 9th round, Wang Feng returned to the hotel and continued to think about how to modify the solitary act sex cultivation method. Around midnight, there was a sudden knock on the door. Opening the door, a woman stood quietly outside. Wang Feng took a look and felt that she was a little familiar. Don't tell me you don't recognize me? You've really disappointed me. The woman smiled dejectedly. My name is Xiao Liner, I'm from the Drunken Dream Pavilion, an 18-year-old little brother. Oh, so it's you. Wang Feng immediately interrupted and sized her up. I don't need any service. It's already so late, your work should be over, right? Don't you need to rest? When the woman heard this, her temples throbbed. Damn it, do you think I'm here to sell myself? Cut the crap. Xiao Lin said coldly, I'm here to make a deal with you. I'm not doing it. Wang Feng looked at Xiao Lin with disdain. Xiao Lin took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. She slowly said, Don't you want to hear the details of the deal? Isn't it closely related to you that you founded the Soul Charmer Guild? This woman was Wang Feng's opponent in the 4th round. She was humiliated by Wang Feng and was kicked off the stage. All right, tell me, Wang Feng said casually. Hearing this, Xiao Lin revealed a trace of a smile. Do you know about the nascent shadow sect? On the 4th day, the successor of the nascent shadow sect personally came to find me and offered an extremely high price to make you lose face on the stage. His original intention was to smear the reputation of the Soul Charmer Guild. Xiao Lin said indifferently. Oh. Wang Feng glanced at Xiao Lin. Your drunken dream pavilion is doing business and casually divulging the employer's information to others? Wang Feng naturally guessed this. The nascent shadow sect's business was contrary to the Soul Charmer Guild. Once the Soul Charmer Guild became popular in the continent, the nascent shadow sect would either decline or change their business. They definitely wanted to deal with him. However, Wang Feng didn't expect Xiao Lin to come directly to him and say this. Since you know, I'm sure you know the cause and effect with your intelligence. Xiao Lin continued. Then I won't keep you in suspense. Today, the nascent shadow sect's titled Douluo was defeated. This means that the nascent shadow sect's journey in the Apex tournament is about to come to an end. You're very powerful now, and the rise of the Soul Charmer Guild is unstoppable. The nascent shadow sect wants to use a secret to ask you to let them live. Hearing this, Wang Feng smiled. End of chapter. Chapter 1320. Why didn't she come in person? Wang Feng asked. Miss Ling said that she was afraid that you would be disgusted if you saw her. The relationship between the father and daughter is somewhat related to the Shadow Source sect. If she came in person, this deal would definitely be impossible, so she asked me to come and persuade you, Xiao Lin replied. Wang Feng laughed out loud. You said that the successors of these sects were stupid, but they weren't. Although the father and daughter died because of their identity as soul contractors and were related to the Shadow Source sect, it was actually the evil soul masters behind the scenes who secretly framed the Shadow Source sect. Because the Shadow Source sect happened to have the motive to do so, hoping that the Federation would kill each other. But Wang Feng saw through it at that time. The Shadow Source sect didn't know about this and thought that the Federation had already blamed them for the father and daughter's death. But because of the competition and the lack of actual evidence, they didn't take action. Now that the Shadow Source sect was defeated in advance, they felt that the Federation might directly take action. Helpless and desperate, they could only give in. No matter how strong a sect was, compared to the Federation, it was always like a mayfly compared to a tree. Okay, I agree. What's the secret? Tell me. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. He didn't care about a mere Shadow Source sect at all. This kind of small sect wasn't even qualified to be his opponent. As for finding trouble with them? What a joke, that was purely because they had eaten too much. Wang Feng didn't need to lower his status to the level of a small sect. The conflict between them and soul contractors was their own relationship. Wang Feng couldn't be bothered to care whether they lived or died. Xiao Lin was stunned for a moment. She obviously didn't expect the other party to agree so quickly. Today, she had come prepared to pester the other party for a long time to make the other party agree. She didn't expect it to succeed in one go. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Lin said, The Shadow Source sect is a sect that often deals with soul beasts. They have killed many soul beasts, including many evil soul beasts. Most of the people from their sect lurk in many soul beast forests, often for several months at a time, especially the traces of rare soul beasts. The Shadow Source sect bluntly said that they know the most details. Get to the point. Wang Feng nodded slightly. The Shadow Source sect recently said that a group of Shadow Source sect disciples lurking in a certain soul beast forest discovered something. They saw a soul contractor. Xiao Lin whispered. What's there to be curious about? Wang Feng frowned. Is this person making fun of me? What kind of secret was that? But they're not soul contract masters, they're evil soul masters. Wang Feng was slightly taken aback by Xiao Lin's words. You might not be able to imagine. It's a group of evil soul masters who have signed life contracts with many evil soul beasts. Xiao Lin's expression was very strange. This information is valuable. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. Wang Feng had long expected that the soul contract master's gift wasn't entirely good. There were always two sides to everything. There was no such thing as absolute perfection. The appearance of a soul contractor had its good side, but it also had its bad side. However, the good side far outweighed the bad side. However, Wang Feng did not expect this to happen so quickly. The father and daughter, especially the father, could be considered to have died because of this. Now, the bad side had appeared. A soul master could sign a life contract with a soul beast. However, could those evil soul masters use life soul pacts to form contracts with evil soul beasts? Would they become even stronger after signing a life contract with the evil soul beast? Back then, Wang Feng had wondered how the evil soul master had managed to hide a soul demon so well. When dealing with the father and daughter, he had even injected the soul demon's soul into the little girl's brain without the entire Federation noticing. One had to know that the aura of a soul demon was particularly unique. An evil soul master with a soul demon in Martial Spirit City was too easy to be exposed. How did he do it? Now it seemed that the answer was the soul domain space. Obviously, the evil soul master and the evil soul beast had signed a life contract. This evil soul beast was born from an egg and contained the soul of the soul demon. It was hidden in the soul domain space and was difficult to detect. At first, the nascent Shadow Sect wanted to spread this news and let the Federation ban life soul contracts and soul contract masters. Xiao Lin continued. This method seemed to be much more powerful, because once the news spread, the reputation of soul contract masters would definitely plummet. Unfortunately, Wang Feng shook his head. It's a pity because the evil soul masters already know. What has already happened is useless to ban it. Coupled with your relationship with the nascent Shadow Sect, the Federation is unlikely to do so. They will only target the evil soul masters. Xiao Lin said indifferently, but the Federation might not know because this news was just received by the nascent Shadow Sect. The Federation should repent and find out tomorrow morning. After all, there are Federation garrisons in many soul beast forests. It's just that these garrisons are not as professional and coincidental as the nascent Shadow Sect. The nascent Shadow Sect, also known as the Hidden Yuan Sect, is best at hiding in the soul beast forest. This nascent Shadow Sect really knows how to plan. They came to find him at this time. If it was tomorrow morning, this news might be worth a lot of money. You didn't expect this, did you? Xiao Lin suddenly smiled sweetly. Life soul contracts didn't start to spread among humans, but instead were used by evil soul masters. It's just a matter of time. Wang Feng smiled faintly. It's better to suffer later than earlier. The sooner it's discovered, the easier it is to deal with it. If it's discovered later, the situation will be even more serious. This kind of thing was inevitable. If soul contract masters wanted to spread it, this was unavoidable. It couldn't be stopped. At most, it could only stop most people's behavior, but it couldn't restrain the soul master's heart. The heart turned to evil, and this problem could only be avoided by solving the root cause. In fact, there might never be an end to using soul charmers to commit evil deeds. There was no such thing as absolute beauty in this world. It was just that it should be avoided as much as possible. This was the law of the world. This news was very valuable, but to Wang Feng it wasn't that surprising. Someone who can create a life-soul contract is really extraordinary. Shaolin smiled. You don't look like an 18-year-old little brother. What do you plan to do? Although evil soul masters can't cause much trouble, once they sign a life-soul contract with an evil soul beast, that's a qualitative change. Shaolin chuckled a few times. After the competition, there might be a war on the continent. These evil soul masters will definitely pose a big threat to the Federation. It might even cause other reactions in the Federation's soul master world, which isn't good news for soul contract masters. Wang Feng smiled and said, If you carefully study the life-soul contract, you probably know that I don't need to do anything. The deal is done, you can go back. With that, Wang Feng closed the door. Shaolin touched her nose and was stunned. She recalled the contents of the life-soul contract in her mind and vaguely understood a little. End of this chapter. Chapter 13:21. The 10th day. The 10th round. 10 days had passed since the summit tournament. In just 10 days there were many strong people in the tournament. No one knew about the many things that happened around the soul contract masters. In the morning, the heavenly kings led by the Douluo found Wang Feng and mentioned this matter. In fact, Shaolin was wrong. Last night, when the Shadow Sect first found out, the Federation already knew. But because it was late at night, they didn't come to find Wang Feng. Shaolin came in the middle of the night because of this. They didn't want to miss this opportunity. According to our information, the Federation's army stationed in the Soul Beast Forest can no longer suppress it. We have to retreat first. The Douluo's voice was serious. Evil soul masters and evil soul beasts are very strong after combining. Originally, evil soul beasts were uncontrollable and had strong killing intent. Their brains were corroded by dark demonic energy, and they had strong fighting instincts, but they were also blinded by these instincts. According to the report, evil soul masters can control evil soul beasts to fight. They are stronger than before. Their fighting strength has increased by several levels, Heavenly King Nan Yuan said. How funny! Heavenly King Bing sighed. Life-soul contracts are so strong. Unfortunately, the ones who used them first weren't humans. Instead, it was those evil soul masters. It's a great irony to the Federation. Evil soul masters have no rules. To them, it's fine as long as they can become stronger. They can learn any method and are very receptive to it. On the contrary, we soul masters worship tradition and are not very receptive to new things. It's really ironic. Heavenly King Yu shook his head and sighed. After that, Heavenly King Yu continued, the holy feather guards from the angel temple have already been mobilized. They should be able to suppress it. The only problem is that the life-soul contract isn't just spreading among this group of evil soul masters. It's possible that many evil soul masters have already spread it. That's right. Heavenly King Star Spirit said, I suspect that the evil soul beast that night might have formed a life-soul contract with an evil soul beast and hid the soul demon's soul in it and brought it into Martial Spirit City. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to hide it from us. It's impossible to bring an evil soul beast into Martial Spirit City. As he spoke, the heavenly kings looked at Wang Feng. Why are you looking at me? Wang Feng asked. Senior, is there no better way to stop it? Heavenly King Nan Yuan pouted. You were the one who created it. Wang Feng laughed and said, Isn't the method already in the life contract? All the Douluo heavenly kings were stunned. The first core of the life-soul contract. After signing the contract, the soul beast will give a portion of its life force to the soul master. Wang Feng slowly said, But what is an evil soul beast? They were the life forms of soul beasts that had been corroded by the dark devil chi, and their life force was mixed with the power of the dark devil realm. Evil soul masters are also soul masters, and they are unable to absorb dark devil chi. At the same time, the evil soul beast's soul ring also contains dark demonic chi. Once an evil soul beast receives a soul ring from an evil soul beast, it will definitely absorb the dark demonic chi within the soul ring. At the same time, I'm guessing that it will be corroded by the dark demonic chi every time it uses a soul skill. Hearing this, many Douluo heavenly kings' eyes lit up. Perhaps there won't be any problems in the short term. But after a while, the dark demonic energy will clash with a soul master. In the end, you'll either become a monster like the evil soul beast, or you'll explode and die. Unless, they were originally creatures of the dark devil realm. But if that's the case, the life-soul contract might not be effective. The life-soul contract was only created by Wang Feng for humans and soul beasts. All the rules were only suitable for humans and soul beasts. If one wanted to sign a life-soul contract with other life forms, then all kinds of situations would naturally occur. Therefore, these evil soul masters will be strong for a while, but they will soon seek their own destruction. Wang Feng said indifferently, "Of course, there might also be some special evil soul masters who won't necessarily seek their own destruction, but most of them will end up very miserably." When Xiao Liner said it that night, Wang Feng had already thought about it. The deeper one understood the life-soul contract, the easier it was to see through this point. However, this information was indeed valuable. At least, it allowed Wang Feng to see the other side of the soul charters. This also meant that there were loopholes in any rules. It was the same for the life-soul contract. Although the life-soul contract itself has implicit restrictions, it still depends on how the Federation will make more improvements for soul charters in the future, so that more soul masters won't be led astray. Wang Feng said one last sentence and headed towards the Hongyu Soul dueling arena. Today was the 10th round, and there were only slightly more than 100 people in the Apex group. The true top 100. Today's youth division was a break, and the finals would start in 2 days. Shrek Academy vs. East Feng Academy. The next 2 days were the most crucial rounds of the Apex group. There were more than 100 people, and there were basically no soul sages. There weren't many soul Douluo. Most of them were titled Douluo. One could see the difference between them. And Wang Feng wasn't as lucky as last time in this round. This time, he met a very strong opponent. A rank 95 titled Douluo. Wang Feng was also familiar with the martial soul, the blazing sun sky chrysanthemum. Why was he familiar with it? Because the origin of this martial soul was the evolved variant of the chrysanthemum Douluo from the martial soul hall. Actually, the chrysanthemum Douluo was very strong back then. In terms of the quality of his martial soul, the chrysanthemum Douluo, who had an immortal grade herb as his martial soul, was extremely talented. It was a pity that there was too little research on martial souls back then. Even if he had such a strong martial soul, he could only unleash 70 to 80% of his martial soul's strength. This was why the chrysanthemum Douluo wasn't considered strong among the titled Douluo back then. But it was different now. As the world of soul masters deepened their research on martial souls, many martial souls developed more powerful uses. Now that the strength of soul masters had increased, it could be said that it was affected in many ways. There was the origin energy of heaven and earth, and there was also the Federation's constant research on martial souls. In addition, it was all thanks to the Bibidon. Whether it was 10,000 years ago or now, most of the powerful martial souls that were born didn't lose their inheritance. Instead, they changed, mutated, and evolved from generation to generation. This also contributed to the strength of the Federation. The standard of martial souls was much higher than the Sunset Empire's soul tool technology. And this blazing sun sky chrysanthemum was a famous tool soul. This was an ultimate martial soul with many functions. It seemed very contradictory. How could an ultimate martial soul have many functions? But this chrysanthemum was really such a martial soul. End of chapter. Chapter 1322. Limits referred to the elemental limits, while multifunctions referred to the martial soul's abilities. In fact, there were a few other special chrysanthemum-type martial souls that had evolved from the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum. They were all very powerful. However, this chrysanthemum was very special. Wang Feng didn't let the little Kuan shark fight this round. That was because the difference in abilities was too great. The little Kuan shark didn't even have a chance to fight with his opponent. Naturally, he didn't have any experience. However, he could still gain experience by watching the fight. Hence, Wang Feng only let the little Kuan shark watch this round. He let Long Xie fight. This titled Douluo didn't look very old. He was in his early 30s, but he was already in his 80s. However, he looked very well maintained. He had white hair and a youthful complexion. This was one of the characteristics of natural treasures like the blazing sun sky chrysanthemum. The chrysanthemum Douluo was the same. He looked very young, and one couldn't tell his actual age. Simply put, this type of martial soul would possess a strong life force as one cultivated it. It would nourish the soul master and increase their lifespan, making them look very young. The singular velvet sky chrysanthemum had this characteristic too. However, the chrysanthemum Douluo might not have been able to develop it. This was because it required a special cultivation method. The second characteristic was its aura. The singular velvet sky chrysanthemum was a natural treasure. It was born with half a day and was a spiritual item of nature. It was a life that was loved by nature. It was no longer just a pure heavenly treasure. As a martial soul, it would slowly change the soul master's physique as he cultivated. It would make the soul master more compatible with heaven and earth. It could reduce some negative karma and greatly increase one's cultivation speed. In this world, people who cultivated this type of martial soul were usually very lucky. Their cultivation would improve faster than others. Luck was very important to many people, let alone soul masters. This kind of mysterious and unfathomable thing. You might think that it didn't exist, but when luck really came, you would doubt your life. For example, Wang Feng could clearly sense that this titled Douluo had 2 more soul bones than normal titled Dalu. This was luck. Obtaining soul bones was still a matter of luck. Many soul beasts died in the Great War of the Soul Beasts. Many soul bones were buried in the Soul Beast Forest. However, most of them had been taken by the Federation. Those that were left out could only be found by those who were extremely lucky. This kind of discovery was a free win. Therefore, you're quite lucky to be able to cultivate such a martial soul. Just based on this point alone, even if this martial soul was trash, it was worth it. The most important thing was that this martial soul was not only not trash, but also very strong. His strength lay in his ultimate flame attribute, as well as his multi-purpose support. The 2 words scorching sun in this martial soul meant that this martial soul possessed a scorching attack comparable to the sun. Multifunctional support meant that this martial soul had both control and a powerful attack amplification effect. It would be of great help to both the team and the individual. Do you think this martial soul is strong or not? The high-ranking soul masters who could participate in the summit tournament were all extremely talented and powerful high-ranking soul masters in the entire Federation. He didn't need too many top-notch martial souls. My name is Blazejade. On the stage, the soul master with the blazing sun skirich chrysanthemum cupped his hands and smiled at Wang Feng. I've seen that you haven't revealed your martial soul in the previous few matches, and have only used your soul-bound beast to fight. It's a pity that I met you today. I hope you can use your martial spirit. My strength is not in vain. Well said, well said. Wang Feng also cupped his hands and returned the greeting. I also want to see how powerful this mutated and evolved singular velvet sky chrysanthemum is. Then I will definitely do my best and not disappoint you, Blazejade said gracefully. At their level of strength, most of them were overlords of the Federation, VIPs of some large factions, vice-sect leaders, and grand elders. Whether it was bearing or strength, They were all top-notch in the Federation. The moment he finished speaking, Wang Feng suddenly felt a heat wave hit him. Before his martial soul appeared, 9 soul rings flickered on Blazejade's body. 1 purple, 6 black, and 2 red soul rings. With this soul ring configuration, Wang Feng definitely couldn't have it without some fortuitous encounter. Even though there weren't many high-ranking soul masters left with 100,000-year soul rings, they were all top-notch in the Federation. However, there were still very few titled Douluo with 100,000-year soul rings. It was already good to have one. 2 was too few. It was pitifully few. It was impossible to not have a fortuitous encounter. Blazejade's 4 soul bones and 2 100,000-year soul rings were enough to show how powerful his Blazejade Sky Chrysanthemum was. God knows how lucky he was. Blazejade Sky. Blazejade opened his palm, and a bright red chrysanthemum appeared. Suddenly, there seemed to be another source of light. The scorching light surged in all directions. The heat wave in the air was visible to the naked eye. Wang Feng felt as if he was in a flaming mountain. The scorching heat was roasting the earth. Innate domain. Furthermore, this domain wasn't a soul skill. It was very likely that Blazejade had given birth to this domain when his martial soul true body was over class 70. It was very unlikely that he didn't have a fortuitous encounter. When this domain appeared, Long Xie was very direct. "Boss, you're quite powerful. How much strength do you want me to use today? You decide. You can't blame me if you lose." "Use your full strength," Wang Feng said. "That won't do. It's just a competition. How can I use my full strength?" Long Xie disagreed. "I have to save some trump cards too." "What trump card do you have?" Wang Feng sneered. "If you don't use your full strength, you won't last more than 10 moves against him." "Boss, you're looking down on me." Long Xie was a little angry. He flew up and headed towards Blazing Jade. His earthy yellow body began to slowly turn red under the heat of this domain. Qiyu glanced at Long Xie and smiled. He seemed to be prepared. Soul skill. Solitary marks pride. As Qiyu muttered to himself, he waved his hand. In an instant, a sun appeared in his hand, and the dazzling light of the blazing sun Skirich chrysanthemum grew even brighter. At the same time, the temperature of the domain rose again. An invisible aura emanated from the chrysanthemum. From afar, it looked like a divine flower that no one dared to approach or profane. This was a rare soul skill that could increase one's domain power. Suddenly, Long Xie felt as if he had fallen into a quagmire. Invisible light and heat waves formed a wall around him, completely suppressing him. He couldn't move at all. It was extremely difficult for him to even get close. Just one soul skill was enough to stop Long Xie from advancing. "He's no match for me," Qiyu said slowly. "You should make your move. P.S. Cough cough. There's still one more chapter to go. I'm going to sleep." End of chapter. Chapter 1323. This was probably Long Xie's first time facing such a troublesome opponent ever since he recultivated. Of course, this was mainly because of the huge difference in their cultivations. Long Xie had only been cultivating for less than 2 years since his reincarnation. Long Xie's bloodline would only evolve and become stronger after 100,000 years. He wasn't that strong now. Furthermore, this titled Douluo was very strong. Hence, he was suppressed from the start. However, Long Xie was still very angry. He was a million-year soul beast, but he was being suppressed by a titled Dalu. Although he knew how strong he was now, this was normal. Long Xie couldn't take it anymore. He was furious as he thought about this. Long Xie's blood boiled as his eyes turned red. Waves of special energy surged into Long Xie's body from all directions. Wang Feng was stunned. Is this evil intent? Wang Feng felt as if he had returned to the first time he fought Long Xie. Long Xie was the evil intent of the dragon god. After countless years, he gained consciousness, and could absorb the evil intent of countless soul beasts to strengthen himself. He wasn't liked by the dragon god, and he wasn't tolerated by heaven and earth. He should have died under the heavenly tribulation, but he managed to survive because of the system. He met Wang Feng in the end. Wang Feng was still trying to guess Long Xie's origin. After he became his soul ring, Long Xie still had such powerful abilities. With Wang Feng's help, he was able to recultivate as a soul-bound beast, but he never used this ability again. In his words, his soul and body weren't compatible. Many of his abilities were sealed, and he could only use soul skills. The most amazing thing was that he could absorb evil intent and use all kinds of powerful moves. At the same time, he was invincible. Long Xie's situation was different from Bing Mu Lord's. Bing Mu Lord absorbed the evil soul beast Seg, and many of his abilities didn't disappear. Instead, he mutated because of the dark demonic qi. Although it was difficult for him to use his abilities in the past, they didn't disappear. Although this guy usually likes to show off and act frivolously, he's actually quite the troublemaker. However, he's still the arrogant Long Xie. Wang Feng whispered, I didn't expect him to activate his abilities under such circumstances. Normally, after the evil dragon reached 100,000 years of age and evolved again, these abilities would appear along with his body and soul. However, it had been activated prematurely under the pressure of a titled Douluo. This was, of course, a good thing. In fact, Long Xie had been holding a grudge ever since they left the Divine Mountain. It was just that this guy had lived for so many years, so he would not easily express his inner emotions. In addition, he was very close to Wang Feng. Usually, he liked to boast and teach the little Kuan shark a lesson. She didn't look like she would get angry. The enraged Long Xie activated his ability in advance. His aura rose bit by bit, and his body swelled like a balloon. His cultivation didn't rise, but the terrifying energy contained in his body made Qiyu frown. Unfortunately, this wasn't the Soul Beast Forest. Otherwise, Long Xie would have been even stronger. Did he activate some special skill? Blazing Yu was confused. This Soul Beast's body had changed slightly. From its earthy yellow exterior, it now looked a little red. At the same time, the evil dragon started to move forward slowly under the pressure of the domain. His body alternated between red and yellow. It was like a stage lighting effect. Third soul skill, Scorching Sun. Qiyu was shocked when he saw this. However, he didn't hesitate. The moment his third soul ring shone, a beam of scorching light was released from his chrysanthemum flower. It was like a light cannon that was fired towards the evil dragon. When this light cannon appeared in the domain, it seemed to trigger a special effect that increased the area of the domain by 30%. At the same time, it increased from 1 to 2. The Scorching Sun domain was indeed extraordinary. It was evident how strong an innate domain was. The two light cannons struck the evil dragon amidst the boundless light. They were so quick that he couldn't dodge them. Boss, is Brother Long all right? Little Kuan shark, who was watching the battle from the side, was shocked. It wanted to go over and help, but it thought that with its strength, it would only add to the chaos, so it immediately stopped. Your brother Long is an old soul beast who has lived for countless years. He has a lot of fighting experience. Wang Feng laughed. You have to trust him. Nothing will happen. The little Kuan shark nodded. He felt that his boss was right. However, in the next moment, he saw the evil dragon's huge body flying backwards. Shi Yan's dragon scales were smashed into pieces, revealing the bright red flesh underneath. Long Xie was like a small mountain that had been kicked away. He flew in midair for a few seconds. Wang Feng. The little Kuan shark. Wang Feng's mouth twitched. It seemed like the difference in strength was too great. Wang Feng felt that he had to intervene. Long Xie knew how to flaunt his abilities. However, no matter how much he flaunted his abilities, this wasn't 10,000 years ago. These titled Douluo were much stronger than the titled Douluo from 10,000 years ago. However, in the next moment, Long Xie flew in midair and shouted, "God imprisoning Qilin cage." As Long Xie finished speaking, countless dragon scales that had fallen off seemed to have a life of their own. They froze in midair. Sway he flew toward Qi Yu like a rain shower. "It's this move." Wang Feng paused after taking a step forward. He thought for a second and understood. This fellow hasn't used his old abilities for too long. He can't control them as he pleases. This powerful control-type skill requires great confidence and control over his body. He also needs to absorb evil thoughts. He used Blazing Jade's move to shatter the dragon scales on his body. Only then was he barely able to use this move. He's very harsh on himself. He was indeed very harsh. Qi Yu's soul skill was greatly amplified by the domain, and the two soul skills covered a third of Long Xie's body. It definitely wasn't easy. However, Long Xie could only use this method to forcefully unleash his old skills. After all, he wasn't a million-year soul beast, nor was he 100,000-year soul beast. He was only 30,000 years old. The dragon's scales flew above the evil dragon. After that, they landed neatly. Countless scales started to surround the evil dragon. In the blink of an eye, they formed a huge cage. However, it was much weaker than when the million-year evil dragon used it. Back then, Wang Feng was trapped by this move. If Bibidon hadn't arrived in time, the situation might have been different. The moment the evil dragon was sealed by this move, the strength of the domain decreased rapidly. The flow of soul power was cut off. This showed how powerful this move was. Ha ha! Flying rock spiral, crazed rock demon fist. Long Xie laughed when he saw this. He immediately spun in midair and clenched his hands into fists. He started to attack the cage. This move was powerful because the attacks from the outside were effective. However, the attacks from the inside were all reflected. However, Long Xie was much weaker now. Furthermore, his body wasn't the same as when he was a million-year soul beast. If he used this move, it wouldn't be as effective as before. Therefore, Long Xie didn't stop. He immediately used his 10-year and 100-year soul skills. At the same time, he used his 10,000-year soul skill, Swift Heavenly Lightning. Countless bolts of lightning struck the cage. End of chapter. Chapter 1324. After a series of actions, Long Xie was panting heavily. There was not much soul power left in his body. At this moment, the god-imprisoning Qilin cage finally shattered. Countless streaks of light shot out from the cracks in the Qilin cage. They shone brightly. Finally, it exploded. Instantly, Qi Yu's figure reappeared. He was slightly injured, but it wasn't serious. There was a blazing sun sky connecting chrysanthemum that was more than 10 times bigger than him. 9 soul rings flashed on his body and exuded intense energy. In the center of the blazing sun sky connecting chrysanthemum, there was a glowing soul core. Martial soul true body. Blazing Yu had no choice but to use its martial soul true body to break through Long Xie's attack. It wasn't easy for a rank 96 titled Douluo to use his martial soul true body as a 30,000-year soul beast. After venting, Long Xie felt a little refreshed. Right now, even though his soul power was depleted, he felt a little like before. "Boss, this is all I can do." Long Xie shrugged. Most of his scales didn't return to his body. It would take some time for them to grow back. In order to enjoy himself, Long Xie was going to have to train hard. Wang Feng nodded slightly and allowed Long Xie to return to his soul domain. Little Kuan Shark was very excited as he watched from the side. Since Wang Feng wanted to let Little Kuan Shark absorb more experience, he naturally didn't want to fight. Instead, he let Lin Lord Ice Emu show himself. He let Long Xie take the lead to test the strength of this titled Dalu. Of course, Long Xie overdid it and exhausted Qi Yu. It wasn't easy. After that, he let Lin Lord Ice Emu try to defeat him. It was already the 10th round. It was time for Lin Lord Ice Emu to fight. Qilin Ancestor. As Wang Feng's soul rings flashed, Lin Lord Ice Emu appeared in the sky. Little Coin Shark was even more excited as he watched. He was born in the extreme north. He was naturally familiar with Lin Lord Ice Emu. He could tell from the way he called him Qilin Ancestor. Lin Lord Ice Emu's current strength was different from Long Xie's. He was in his perfect body. Even if he reached 100,000 years, he wouldn't evolve. This was because Lin Lord Ice Emu's cultivation had dropped from 1,000,000 years to 30,000 years. Only his cultivation base decreased. Not only did it not possess any of its other abilities, but it had also become even more powerful after devouring the evil soul beast egg's energy. Don't underestimate it just because it's a 30,000-year soul. However, the current Long Xie couldn't compare to him. At the same time, the appearance of Lin Lord Bingmu caught the attention of many. Qi Yu knew that this soul beast wasn't simple when he saw it. He doesn't have a domain, but he can easily change the nature of the world's origin energy. This kind of soul beast. Qi Yu was extremely shocked when he sensed the rapid drop in temperature around him. In particular, the other party's body, which was black with a hint of ice, gave off an ancient beauty. Moreover, there was also a somewhat special aura. This soul beast, the silver dragon, watched from afar and frowned slightly. What a unique aura! Not only does this soul beast have the aura of a heaven and earth fairy, it also has the aura of the dark demon realm. His origin and birth are not simple. Although there are some differences, if I'm not wrong, it should be the Ice Empress Qilin Lord, a very ancient soul beast. The extreme north was originally formed because of him. Tian said. So it's him. The silver dragon retracted his gaze. With his cultivation, he should be at least 1,000,000 years old. Or he should be dead. Why does he have the aura of the dark demon realm? The Ice Empress Qilin Lord was born later than Long Xie. Although Long Xie was born early, he was born later than Long Xie. They were both soul beasts of the same era. Both Tian and the Silver Dragon had heard of him. As the Silver Dragon had been in hibernation to recover from his injuries, he didn't remember very clearly. However, Tian recognized him. After all, there were very few soul beasts on the continent that were stronger than him. Because he's recultivated, his current cultivation is only around 30,000 years, not even 40,000 years. Tian pondered. Recultivated? The Silver Dragon frowned. If he recultivated, he would have turned into a human. He should have become a soul ring before he recultivated and became a soul-bonded beast. If that's the case, I feel that something isn't right. Are there two of him? Bai Ji suddenly said. There's one in the Godly Mountain and another here? Otherwise, with the Ice Empress Qilin Lord's abilities and cultivation, there's only one soul ring left. The Icewood Qilin Lord from before should be the soul ring of that soul master from the Divine Mountain. Otherwise, how could the Icewood Qilin Lord become the soul ring of a soul master that's over rank 40? As she said this, the Silver Dragon felt as if he had figured something out. At the same time, the blazing jade started to attack as the Ice Empress Qilin Lord appeared. The blazing sun sky connecting Chrysanthemum's elements couldn't compare to the Ice Empress Qilin Lord's absolute ice. However, the blazing jade had an absolute advantage because of his soul power and rank. This was especially so when he had a martial soul true body. The blazing jade proved what a multi-purpose martial soul was. From the restriction of a large area to the offensive and defensive abilities of a martial soul true body, the blazing sun sky connecting Chrysanthemum had everything. Furthermore, it had single-target and multi-target defensive abilities. This was the blazing jade's 8th soul ring, a 100,000-year soul ring that came with 2 soul skills. Countless petals would fly out of the blazing sun sky, reaching chrysanthemum and fuse with blazing jade's body, forming a scorching blazing sun divine armor. With his powerful soul ring and soul power, even the Qilin Lord of Ice Empress's blade of absolute ice couldn't cut through it. It was extremely powerful, but the only flaw of this single-target defensive soul skill was that it would cause a certain amount of damage to the Soul Master. Group defense was the second soul skill of his 8th soul ring. The scorching sun Skirich chrysanthemum in its martial soul true body form would form a scorching sun barrier that would nullify any long-range elemental energy attack. He had used this move to easily block Lin Mu's World of Ice and Snow, which was a combination of a 10-year soul skill and a 100-year soul skill. This move, World of Ice and Snow, was formed by the fusion of Absolute Ice Aura and Absolute Ice Heaven and Earth. It was extremely powerful. However, Blazing Yu easily broke through it. In addition to the powerful defensive ability of these two moves, as a tool soul, the Blazing Sun Sky reaching Chrysanthemum's 9th soul ring had given Blazing Jade 2 soul skills. The Blazing Sun Sky reaching Chrysanthemum's martial soul true body could absorb the sun's energy and allow Blazing Jade to enter a special flaming sun state. As a Chrysanthemum's martial soul true body, it could turn into several sharp weapons that could self-destruct in close combat. Apart from that, the Blazing Sun Sky reaching Chrysanthemum also possessed powerful regenerative abilities. Similarly, as long as it was daytime, this chrysanthemum could absorb the sun's light and speed up its recovery. It could last much longer than a titled Douluo of the same rank. It was only when Lin Mu used his 10,000-year soul skill, the Icewing Divine Blade, that the wings on his back turned into 2 icy blades that he was barely able to hold his own against Blazing Jade in his current state. However, if he wanted to defeat Blazing Jade, this wasn't enough. This martial soul wasn't just strong enough. P.S. I'm taking a day off today. End of this chapter. Chapter 1325. In fact, Soul Masters rarely had any flaws when they became titled Dalu. They wouldn't be too bad in any aspect. Individual abilities and mid-tier Soul Masters were in 2 different worlds. Sometimes, a soul ring could greatly enhance a soul master in a certain aspect. Chiyu was one of the best. The greatest characteristic of a titled Douluo was that they didn't have any obvious weaknesses. Unless they were titled Douluo who had reached the pinnacle. However, those titled Douluos had high requirements for their martial souls and soul rings, but they weren't very valuable. In fact, their fighting strength was far inferior to that of a balanced titled Dalu. This could be seen from Jian Li's fight with Chiyu. Wang Feng was deep in thought as he watched. "Boss, I feel that the Ice Ancestor is barely on par with him." Little Kuan Shark's lantern-sized eyes didn't blink. He was afraid of missing anything. After Lin Lord Ice Ancestor unleashed his Ice Wing Blade, it was a serious close combat battle. The battle usually happened in a flash. The speed of the battle was extremely fast. Furthermore, soul skills were only unleashed for an instant. The speed at which they were unleashed was extremely fast. Any detail in the battle would be missed. In fact, soul masters below rank 70 could barely see clearly. However, they could directly sense the abilities of a titled Dalu. This was one of the many meanings of the tournament. More accurately speaking, he's at a slight disadvantage. Wang Feng shook his head slightly. Chiyu is different from the previous titled Dalu. His soul ring configuration is the most reasonable. This isn't just about their age, but also the abilities of their soul skills. Evidently, humans have developed the most suitable combination for this martial soul after countless years of research. The biggest difference between humans and soul beasts was that humans' intelligence evolved very quickly. After so many years of research, martial souls had been developed. The Federation had categorized, filtered, and researched countless martial souls. What kind of martial soul, what kind of soul ring was suitable for it, what kind of soul skill was suitable for it, what kind of soul beast was suitable for it, and so on. It could be said that most martial souls had reached an extremely high level. If the Federation had focused on the development of soul tool technology in these 10,000 years, Wang Feng was sure that the Federation wouldn't have stepped out of the Douluo world, but the standard of soul tool technology would have far surpassed that of his previous world. One could imagine how deep the human race's research on martial spirits had been in the past 10,000 years. In terms of the age of his martial soul, soul rings, soul skills, fusion skills, true body, soul core, talent domain, everything was far better than it had been 10,000 years ago. This was especially true for high-grade soul masters. The higher they climbed, the more they could feel the power brought about by this change. Given Lin Lord Ice Empress's current strength and the fact that it had fused with the dark demonic energy, even though it was only 30,000 years old, it would have been able to crush a large number of rank 90 titled Douluo 10,000 years ago. But now, he could only exchange blows with a rank 96 soul master, and was at a slight disadvantage. The deeper they went into the competition, the more Wang Feng could feel the changes that had taken place in the past 10,000 years. When he first entered Shrek Academy, he didn't think much of it. But when he came to Martial Spirit City and participated in the Federation's pinnacle competition, he could feel the strong foundation that Bibidon had laid for the future generations after unifying the Federation. Actually, it was just a simple combination of soul skills and martial spirits, but there were countless ways to combine them. In order to find the best combination, many soul masters would have to walk down many paths before they could find the most suitable one. Furthermore, soul skills originated from soul beasts, and the Federation had a soul beast protection law. On top of this, they still needed to complement each other to prevent too many soul beasts from going extinct. This required time and effort, and was measured in terms of generations. At this moment, an explosive sound could be heard from the stage. Two figures retreated quickly. One was Blazing Yu, who had entered the special Blazing Sun form, while the other was Lin Lord Ice Empress. The two of them were fighting intensely, and seemed to have entered a temporary truce. As they had both used their ultimate skills, their soul power had been greatly depleted. At this moment, the strength of a titled Douluo was displayed. Blazing Yu had a soul core, and his recovery speed was much faster than Lin Lord Ice Empress. Even the origin energy of heaven and earth was affected by Lin Lord Ice Empress, which greatly reduced Blazing Yu's recovery speed. It was a pity that a titled Douluo's recovery speed was many times faster when he was in his martial soul true body state, in addition to his soul core. This was why Blazing Yu was so strong. He was different from Jianli, who was an ultimate attacker. Regardless of whether it was his soul rings or soul skills, they were all focused on attacking. This was why Jianli could rely on his 7 kills sword to challenge those of a higher class. Qing Yu's victory was too coincidental. If not for the fact that she discovered Jian Li's method of countering his sword moves, and didn't use the Ice Emperor, she wouldn't have had any chance of winning. Just as Wang Feng was thinking of a way to break out of this situation, Blazing Yu was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. Is this really a 30,000-year soul beast? Blazing Yu thought to himself, if I use my martial soul true body, even a 100,000-year soul beast won't be a match for me. I'm actually on par with a 30,000-year soul-bonded beast? Blazing Yu glanced at Wang Feng. As a titled Douluo, his horizons and knowledge were naturally different. His understanding of soul charters was also greater than that of other soul masters. Could it be because of the training? This soul-bonded beast is far stronger than a 30,000-year soul beast. It might even be stronger than a 100,000-year soul beast. This soul beast is definitely not ordinary, but it can't possibly widen such a huge gap. Blazing Yu was clear that apart from the few core principles and rules of soul charters, there was another important point. Humans possessed a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Once they formed a contract with a soul beast, they would become partners. In that case, they would naturally regret using humans to train and nurture soul beasts. In fact, there were a few such organizations in the history of the Federation. However, they captured soul beasts to nurture them, but their goal was only soul rings. They reared soul beasts in captivity. However, most of these organizations had gone bankrupt. This was because soul beasts cultivated very slowly. If humans wanted to nurture soul beasts for cultivation, they couldn't afford to waste so much time. However, the appearance of life soul contracts would greatly increase the cultivation speed of soul beasts. In that case, humans could also nurture soul beasts. It was just that this kind of nurturing wasn't like rearing in captivity. It was a form of training. Using human knowledge to train soul beasts, coupled with the cultivation speed of soul contracts and powerful evolutionary abilities, soul-bonded beasts would naturally be much stronger than soul beasts of the same cultivation. The key was how to train them. End of chapter. Chapter 1326. Qi Yu attributed Qilin Lord Bingmu's strength to Wang Feng's training. However, there was indeed a connection between the two. There were many soul masters who thought the same as Qi Yu. Otherwise, it was hard to explain Qilin Lord Bingmu's strength. After all, not many people knew about his identity. Perhaps only a few heavenly kings knew about him. It seems like I have to ask the juniors in my clan to study how to train soul-bonding beasts. This thought flashed through Qi Yu's mind. His soul power recovered quickly and he charged forward again. At this moment, Wang Feng released Long Xie. He thought for a long time but couldn't think of a way to win without him attacking. There was only one way. The two of you can try soul skill fusion. Wang Feng pondered. My disciples have tried the combination of soul-bonded beasts before, which gave me some inspiration. They are different soul-bonding beasts of different soul masters, and they can all perform soul skill fusion. The two of you should understand each other. I wonder if you can succeed. Previously, Hu Hao and the others tried soul skill fusion to defeat their enemies, but an accident happened. As the creator of soul charters, Wang Feng didn't feel ashamed that his disciples could create soul skill fusion before him. Instead, he felt proud. This meant that these disciples of his had talent. Soul charters were bound to be a huge system in the future. On top of soul masters, soul-bonding beasts were added. It was impossible for a single person to make up for the flaws in this system. Soul skill fusion? Long Xie thought for a moment and said, Old Bing, what do you think? We can try. Qilin Lord Bingmu muttered, Our cultivations aren't too different. Although you are much weaker than me, we are familiar with each other. Soul skill fusion isn't just about the compatibility between our strengths, it also has a lot to do with us. Well said, except for the sentence, you are much weaker than me. Long Xie agreed, let's try it. The two soul-bonding beasts appeared. Long Xie had expended a lot of energy just now, but he could still use one soul skill. He could only use one. Let's do it. A loud voice rang out. Wang Feng watched calmly. The combination of soul skills naturally had to be the most powerful, and that was the order of combination. Wang Feng didn't say anything. It was different from Hu Hao and the others' soul-bonded beasts. Long Xie and Bingmu Qilin Lord were both intelligent and had their own ideas. They were also soul masters, so they knew themselves best. They knew exactly how to combine their move. Wang Feng did not think that he knew better than the two of them. Of course, Wang Feng also had his own ideas. The prerequisite was that they had to be the first to use it. Heavenly Lightning. Long Xie only used one move. However, the target wasn't Blazing Jade. It was Lin Lord Bingmu. To be more precise, it was the two Ice-Wing Godblades in Lin Lord Bingmu's hand. Rolling heavenly lightning struck down from the dark cloud vortex, instantly landing on Lin Lord Bingmu's body. Endless purple lightning fell into the two Ice-Wing Divine Blades. Slash! The pure and violent power brought about an unparalleled surge of power. Seeing Blazing Yu approaching like a ray of blazing light, Qilin Lord Isimu seized the opportunity. His huge body wrapped in a divine blade that flickered with icy lightning, and he stood in front of Blazing Yu. In the face of danger, Blazing Jade reacted quickly. The weapon formed by countless chrysanthemums on its body immediately dispersed. It turned into its 8th soul skill, True Body Armor, a powerful single-target defensive soul skill. The soul skills of its true body were switched very smoothly. This was also the effect of its soul core. As its 2nd single-target defensive soul skill, Lin Lord Bing Mu's Ice Wing Divine Blades were unable to cause any damage. However, with the addition of Long Xie's Heavenly Lightning and the power of Absolute Ice in the Ice Wing Divine Blades, the armor was instantly sliced into half. At the same time, the strong recoil sent Lin Lord Bing Mu flying a few hundred meters away. He almost fell into the arena where the others were fighting. However, the destruction of its martial soul true body meant that Blazing Jade's greatest trump card was gone. So strong! Little Coin Shark was astonished. The fusion of soul skills between soul-carving beasts can be so strong? If human soul masters could fuse soul skills, soul beasts could too. It was just that the conditions were stricter. The appearance of a soul carver made this condition difficult. The difficulty was reduced to a simple task for Long Xie and Qilin Lord of Isimu. They aren't ordinary 30,000-year soul beasts. The fusion of different powers is naturally very strong. The Heavenly Lightning itself is an offensive soul skill, Wang Feng explained. Wang Feng explained, when the two of them reach the 100,000-year level, their combined soul skills might even be able to threaten some of the weaker gods. Wang Feng wasn't exaggerating. When they reached 1,000,000 years, they might even be able to threaten godly kings. At the very least, they might be able to threaten a Class 1 god. It wouldn't be like during the Battle of the Gods, when they were like mantises trying to stop a chariot. As this majestic attack landed, Blazing Jade's expression changed when his armor was destroyed. He had expected these two soul beasts to cause trouble, but he didn't expect them to be so strong. Although they had used soul skills like this before, it was obvious that they were more concerned about the summit tournament as titled Doulu. The youth group didn't pay much attention to it. This was why Blazing Jade didn't understand the combination of soul skills. Blazing Jade took out his number plate and heaved a long sigh. I didn't expect to be eliminated in the top 100. It's a pity, but it's worth it. Blazing Jade passed his number plate to Wang Feng. His martial soul had been destroyed, and his fighting strength had been greatly reduced. He had no chance. It was definitely worth it. With his abilities, his status was naturally very high. This battle had deepened his understanding of soul charters. Things would change when he returned to his clan. He would probably have to focus on nurturing the next generation of soul charters. Wang Feng smiled and received his number plate. After today's battle, Lin Lord Bing Mu and the others wouldn't be able to win the next round. This was because their opponents were getting stronger. Even if they were lucky, they couldn't be so lucky every time. After the 10th round, more than 100 people were eliminated. There were no Soul Douluo anymore. Most of them were titled Dalu. Furthermore, they were all very strong. 40% of them were above rank 95 and below rank 97. Most of them were between level 91 and level 94. At the same time, Wang Feng was right. In the following rounds, Wang Feng's opponents were all very strong. In the 11th round, Wang Feng's opponent was a rank 95 control type titled Dalu. His martial soul was extremely strong. It was a mist-like tool soul. As a control-type martial soul, it was one of the strongest. End of chapter. Chapter 13:27. It could create a cloud that covered the entire area at the start of the battle. It was also a talent domain. The cloud had various attributes, such as reducing the enemy's soul power, slowing down the enemy's speed, weakening the enemy's attack and defense, and so on. It could be said to be an all-around negative effect. Furthermore, the cloud was fused with the origin energy of heaven and earth. Once you absorbed the origin energy of heaven and earth to recover your soul power, you would be affected. This meant that you had to calculate the consumption of every inch of your soul power during the battle. In this 1,000 illusion domain, you would never be able to absorb the soul power around you to recover. Once you did, you would be affected. Even with Lin Lord Bingmu's special physique, he was largely immune to these negative effects. However, he still couldn't bear it. At the same time, the cloud in the domain would form all kinds of attacks to attack the enemy within. The Soul Master could hide within the cloud and block spiritual power detection. No one would know where he was. Once he was dragged into this domain, he would be slowly dragged to death no matter how strong he was. The control ability was extremely perverse. Whether it was Lin Lord Bingmu or Long Xie, they would suffer greatly in this domain. They couldn't find any way to attack. It was even more difficult than dealing with Blazing Yu. The 1,000 illusion cloud couldn't be dispelled. It couldn't be dispersed by the wind alone. A mid-tier soul master might be able to do this. However, it was impossible for a titled Douluo to do so. This cloud was extremely thick and contained a lot of water. As long as a titled Douluo didn't disappear and kept the domain active, the cloud would continue to be produced. It was very troublesome. Among the control type, it was unique and unique. In fact, in the Federation's research on soul ring configuration, this kind of martial soul fog would be paired with a certain soul ring that possessed a highly toxic ability. It would be very destructive. It was just like the poison Douluo Dugubo. However, it was much stronger than the poison Douluo. However, in the Tournament of the Pinnacle, such large-scale toxic soul skills were prohibited. This was because once they were released, the poisonous cloud would be difficult to control. It would spread through the entire martial spirit city. Even if it was slightly poisonous, it would be fatal. The consequences would be unimaginable. It was because of this rule that this soul master couldn't unleash his full strength. Even so, he was strong enough. Normally, against such a soul master, only spiritual-type soul masters could accurately locate his position in the cloud. As for the other types, they could only rely on their powerful soul power to survive. Qilin Lord Bingmu and Evil Dragon were helpless. Even if they had the strength, there was nothing they could do. Several times, the two of them relied on their powerful souls and spiritual power to find the soul master's true body hidden in the clouds. However, he had directly activated his martial soul true body. As soon as his martial soul true body was unleashed, the soul master fused as one with his domain and disappeared into the clouds and mist. He was nowhere to be found. Later, Wang Feng gave both of them a suggestion. Now that all soul masters have resistance, it's actually a very good opportunity to cultivate. Your bodies are already very powerful. A soul beast's body is innately stronger than a human's, and its life force is extremely vigorous. Therefore, you can try to fight poison with poison, and directly absorb the clouds to cultivate. Use the strength of your body to quickly develop resistance, and after a while, you won't be afraid of the clouds anymore. Control-type soul masters once had their most glorious days. However, when the Federation's research found out that the effects of a control-type soul master's soul skill could weaken as the soul master adapted to it, the status of control-type soul masters returned to the same level as other types of soul masters. Wang Feng's suggestion immediately woke up Long Xie and Qilin Lord Bingmu. Yes, they were soul-bonded beasts, and their life force was innately strong. They were much stronger than soul masters. Their physiques were also much stronger than soul masters. Humans needed a long time to adapt and develop resistance, but it didn't take long for them. In particular, their physiques were not simple at all. Once a soul master developed resistance to the clouds and mist, wouldn't that mean that the soul master would be defeated by himself? Even if they couldn't, they wouldn't be so passive, right? Thinking of this, Long Xie and Qilin Lord Bingmu defended against their opponent's attacks, and the other began to absorb the clouds and mist to cultivate. They wanted to develop resistance to it. A soul master wouldn't dare to do this. The clouds and mist contained a large number of special particles that greatly affected a soul master's body and soul power. If they absorbed for a long time, their body would become weaker and weaker, and their cultivation would be greatly damaged. However, soul beasts weren't afraid. Especially soul beasts like Long Xie and Qilin Lord Bingmu, who had thick skin and powerful bloodlines. Qilin Lord Bingmu's body was formed by absorbing dark demonic energy, so it naturally had a certain resistance to the clouds and mist. Cultivating resistance to the clouds and mist would be much easier. Wang Feng watched as the two of them carried out their plan. After thinking for a moment, he kicked the little Kuan shark into the clouds too. This little thing also absorbed dark demonic energy to cultivate, and its body was very adaptable. After cultivating for a while, its body would develop resistance to the clouds and mist. In the future, it would have a lot of protection against such control-type abilities. At least it would be able to retaliate. When the little Kuan shark was kicked into the clouds, it was still a little confused. However, it quickly understood what Wang Feng meant. As a result, a good match turned into a training session under Wang Feng's watch. Fortunately, this soul master with the 1,000 illusions clouds and mist didn't have a strong offensive power. It was completely relying on this special cloud and domain to make the enemy suffer a slow death. He didn't have any killing moves like Blazing Yu or Jianli. As long as one of them was defending, they would be able to defend against the attacks of the clouds and mist. At the very least, they would be injured. It was under such circumstances that this battle became the longest match in the peak group competition. From afternoon to night, the other party was a little confused. In the end, they saw a few soul beasts. The Ice Empress was the main soul beast, and wasn't affected by the clouds and mist. They attacked from within the clouds and mist, causing their opponents to be flustered. Then, he lost with a confused look on his face. If other titled Douluo dared to play like this in his clouds and mist, they would have been completely defeated. It was already good enough if they could preserve their cultivation and live for a few more days, let alone develop resistance to the clouds and mist. The main reason was that the Ice Empress wasn't affected. Long Xie was still affected. However, it was enough. At this point, the 11th round ended. Wang Feng counted carefully. There were only slightly more than 30 opponents left. They were all titled Douluo, except for a few who were more special. At the same time, Qin Yu was extremely lucky in the 11th round. She met Hua Linghai from the investigations department, who was also the second soul charmer in the tournament. He didn't spend too much time comprehending and defeated Hua Linghai. The Ice Empress still didn't appear. She was extremely lucky. In the 12th round, Wang Feng was still very unlucky. His opponent was still very strong. Furthermore, his opponent this time wasn't ordinary either. To be precise, it was a soul beast. The person beside the silver-haired lady was called Bai Ji. End of this chapter. Chapter 1328. Wang Feng probably didn't expect to meet Bai Ji. However, soul beasts like her couldn't unleash their original abilities. Furthermore, Bai Ji's method of winning was very infuriating. Bai Ji was an emerald swan, but she didn't have strong offensive abilities. She was adept at assisting in healing. Her life aura was very dense. However, she was still a savage beast from the Great Star Do Forest. Wang Feng wasn't sure how she and Di Tian were able to maintain a certain level of cultivation after taking human form. Perhaps it had something to do with the silver dragon. After observing the previous few rounds, Wang Feng realized that Bai Ji's method of winning was very infuriating. It was a classic healing method that made her opponent despair. Simply put, as long as she healed quickly, her opponent wouldn't be able to kill her. This was especially so for rank 70 or 80 soul masters. They couldn't cause any substantial damage to Bai Ji. In the end, her opponent could only admit defeat. She would only use other methods against a titled Douluo. In the arena, Bai Ji smiled as she looked at Wang Feng. Wang Feng felt that her smile was a little weird. It was a bit like a little maid sizing up the son-in-law, which made Wang Feng very puzzled. I don't think I know her? Wang Fengxian thought to himself. Are you Wang Feng? Bai Ji asked. May I know where you're from? Wang Feng didn't reply. The silver dragon must have discovered my identity. Don't tell me it wants Bai Ji to test me first? I know where you're from. Bai Ji's voice suddenly became softer. You're from the great Star Do forest. You're from the ancient Star Do mountain? Am I right? Since you know, why are you still asking? Wang Feng looked at her. I also know why you walked out of the mountain. At this moment, Bai Ji spoke again. Hearing this, Wang Fengxian's heart tightened. Yes, he didn't have to think. Bai Ji represented the silver dragon. He walked out of the mountain to cultivate his second martial soul and become the origin calamity godly king. Secondly, he wanted to spread the word about forming a contract with soul beasts and changing their relationship. However, it's not that simple to achieve your goal. Bai Ji said slowly. Bai Ji could tell from her analysis that he walked out of the mountain for her master. However, his lord was not human and did not understand human emotions. She spent most of her time in this world, and 99% of her time was spent in hibernation. It was hard to accept a human. Not being able to understand human emotions was the biggest problem. Thinking of this, Bicky sighed in her heart. Unlike soul beasts like them, they had lived on the Douluo continent for hundreds of thousands of years. To know and understand human emotions. That was why Bicky said that. However, these words had a different meaning in Wang Feng's ears. Was the silver dragon really going to stop him? Wang Fengxian's heart sank. The silver dragon might think that soul charters were humans who wanted to enslave soul beasts, so it would stop him from spreading the word about soul charters. This kind of misunderstanding was hard to explain. Life-soul contracts were equal, but in different perceptions, they could also be unequal. No matter how difficult it is, it can't stop me, Wang Feng said indifferently. If there is, I don't mind using some other means. Although his current avatar could not defeat the silver dragon, his original body was still there. As time passed, his understanding of the law of life gradually increased. Most importantly, Wang Feng had obtained the middle part of the one spirit into three pure ones. After studying and comprehending it, he could temporarily borrow part of his original body's abilities. Since he could not defeat the silver dragon for now, Wang Feng could find a place to cultivate. He could directly cultivate to the maximum level. At that time, unless the silver dragon became the dragon god, it would not be able to stop him. At most, it would take a few years. Other means. Bicky was stunned at first, then suddenly opened her eyes wide. She looked at Wang Feng and seemed to have thought of something. Was he going to use force? Force himself on her? What is done cannot be undone. Was this a method that surpassed the God-King level? Amazing! Even more domineering than Brother Tian. Bicky's heart was beating wildly. She glanced at her master who was watching this scene from afar. However, this also showed that he was determined to win over his lord. In fact, Bicky felt that apart from their different races, they were quite compatible. They had talked in the great Star Do forest before and were quite familiar with each other. It was not easy. After thinking for a few seconds, Bicky did not know how to answer. She could not agree, right? Wouldn't that be helping an outsider? However, from another perspective, this seemed to be a solution. Although this method was simple and crude, it should allow her master to directly feel the burning emotions of humans. Thinking of this, Bicky smiled with anticipation and said, I will wait and see. But before that, I suggest that you get to know His Highness first. She might give you a surprise. Bicky felt that her master might even accept it directly. This was also a possibility. However, Wang Feng felt that it was a blatant provocation when he heard this. Wang Fengxin sighed. The appearance of a soul contractor was not only opposed by humans, but also by soul beasts. Humans hated soul beasts, but soul beasts hated humans as well. Let's do it. Wang Feng shook his head and stopped thinking about this. I admit defeat. However, Bicky smiled and said, wait for my master to spar with you again. Oh, Brother Tian might meet you earlier. He is more competitive, but you don't have to hold back. Tian hated it when others held back. This made him seem weak. Even if someone was stronger than him, it was best to go all out. Wang Feng felt that this was a provocation again. He decided that when he met Tian, he would deal a heavy blow. Wang Feng was not surprised that Bicky admitted defeat. She was sent by the Silver Dragon to deliver the challenge. What he said just now was very obvious. Boss, Bicky admitted defeat directly. Why are you still so worried? Long Xie was confused. He transmitted his voice to Long Xie. Wang Feng told him about the Silver Dragon's plan. After hearing this, Long Xie muttered, this Silver Dragon is not simple. She has the origin power of the Dragon God. She cannot be underestimated. She is not as strong as those God Kings, but she has recovered from her injuries. Even if her strength is not fully recovered, she can easily defeat Class 2 and Class 3 God. Although the titled Douluo of this world have become much more powerful, there aren't even any ordinary God-rank powerhouses over rank 100, let alone third-rank gods. With your current strength, I don't think you can beat her. Can you be more certain? Remove the word don't think, Wang Feng said in annoyance. Only Lin Lord Bingmu thought for a long time and said, could you have misunderstood? She might not mean that. Even as a soul beast, I don't feel anything wrong with the life-soul contract. Ice Qilin, you have become my soul ring since a long time ago. Naturally, you would have such thoughts, Wang Feng said, but Bicky's words just now were filled with battle intent. Can't you tell? Qilin Lord Isimu faintly felt that what Wang Feng said seemed to be right, but there was something wrong. He could only let it go. Chapter 1329. On the other side, Bicky returned to the Silver Dragon's side. Bicky, what did you say to him? Tian asked. I saw that you guys were whispering in the arena for a while. It seemed to be going well? It's a secret, Bicky said softly. Tian frowned when he heard that. What secret? I already said it's a secret. How can he tell you so casually? Bicky shook her head. Tell me about it, the Silver Dragon said. I'm also a little curious. What exactly did you guys talk about? Bicky thought to herself that this definitely couldn't be said so casually. If he said his thoughts directly, wouldn't it be completely hopeless? Bicky rolled her eyes and whispered a few words into the Silver Dragon's ear. He told me that he won't give up so easily, Bicky said. The Silver Dragon was stunned and still didn't react. What won't give up so easily? Master you, Bicky said helplessly. What exactly does he want from me? The Silver Dragon frowned slightly. I've never understood. You said he did it for me? Why? Because of love. What is love? It's an extremely complicated emotion among humans, Bicky replied. What complicated emotion? The Silver Dragon was very confused. Simply put, it's like us soul beasts looking for partners to accompany each other. Bicky wanted to explain in the way of soul beasts, but she realized that even in the way of soul beasts, it was very difficult to understand this emotion. Most soul beasts of hundreds of thousands of years might not understand this emotion. A small number could understand, and a very small number could also develop this emotion because they fell in love with humans. Bicky felt that she didn't really understand it, but it was definitely much better than her master. But, the Silver Dragon thought for a moment and suddenly said, isn't that for reproduction? To pass down his bloodline? At this point, the silver dragon was shocked. You mean that his goal is me, and it's for the dragon god bloodline? I see. Bicky. It seemed that her explanation wasn't very good. Even her master misunderstood. However, her master really didn't have many human emotions to be able to say these words so calmly. She didn't look like a human female at all. She didn't even feel the slightest bit embarrassed, let alone shy or embarrassed. Although the mistress in human form was indeed devastatingly beautiful, she was so beautiful that she didn't seem human. Unfortunately, it should be very difficult for people to truly like her, right? Bicky thought. Human men mostly liked those kinds of flirtatious and charming women. Towards his lord, they mostly admired and worshipped him. They didn't dare to have any blasphemous thoughts. She was so beautiful that no one would have much desire for her. Bicky could tell this from the way many men looked at her and his lord. Thinking of this, Bicky sighed in her heart. However, the more the silver dragon thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. If he wants to reproduce with me, if he wants to have children, other than inheriting his own power, does he need to have the dragon god's bloodline? Bloodline inheritance was extremely important. The stronger the bloodline, the harder it was to pass it down. My lord, this is different. Bicky felt that her lord's misunderstanding was getting deeper and deeper. She decided to explain in a different way. Reproduction is just an accessory to love. It's not the main purpose. It's a kind of, how should I put it? A special feeling. For example, humans define this kind of love as, to grow old together. Then its lifespan. The silver dragon frowned. You mean, he's doing this for my lifespan? The lifespan of humans is far inferior to us soul beasts. However, an expert of his level has already surpassed the God King. His lifespan should be endless in the God realm. So, for some special reason, his lifespan is about to run out. That's why he needs my lifespan? Bicky. It's too difficult for me. Bicky realized that she couldn't explain it at all. Tion couldn't stand it anymore. However, he couldn't explain anything either. After thinking for a while, Tion pointed at a couple in front of him and said, My lord, look, this is love. Perhaps because their favorite contestant had won, this couple was cheering and rejoicing. The two of them hugged and kissed each other. Their cheeks were red as they released their inner feelings. The two of them emitted the sour smell of love and showed off their affection. When Bicky saw this, she immediately looked at Tion in admiration. Brother Tion's brain is still useful. Although it's also wood. When the silver dragon saw this scene, it was slightly stunned and opened its mouth slightly. After thinking for a long time, the silver dragon frowned and said, Isn't this the prelude to soul mating? The ultimate goal of soul mating is to pass down the legacy of the future generation. So the essence of love is to pass down the legacy of the future generation and to obtain the dragon god's bloodline? Tion. Bicky. For a moment, the two of them didn't know how to correct the silver dragon's logic. What made their scalps tingle was that after thinking about it carefully, there didn't seem to be a problem. At this moment, the two couples separated. The woman's face was red as she said, Brother you, do you love me? Yes, the man said firmly. Then from now on, let's just be the two of us. No third party, okay? Qian, I only have you in my heart. How can there be a third party? What I mean is, I don't want to have children. Why? I'm afraid of pain. I'm afraid that children will take away your love. Okay. If you say you don't want children, then I won't. Listening to the conversation, the silver dragon was a little stunned. Why didn't they reproduce? Why did they do that? What was love? The silver dragon couldn't understand this kind of emotion. Bicky and Tion couldn't explain it. It was because they were both inexperienced, so it was impossible for them to explain it. They could only rely on their little understanding of humans to give a rough explanation. In the silver dragon's opinion, whether it was the gods or the humans, Looking for a partner was just to pass down the legacy of power. To a certain extent, it was true. Master, you should understand now, right? Love isn't just about reproduction. Reproduction is only a part of love, but not the whole thing. Bicky summed it up. You can try to understand him, Bicky said. The more you understand a person, the more likely you can fully understand this kind of emotion. If you don't understand a person, you'll never understand. Bicky, you've been in love with a human? The silver dragon asked in surprise. Tion's expression changed. No. Bicky shook her head. Then how do you know? Bicky. However, Bicky suddenly seemed to have realized something and asked, Master, after saying so much, you don't seem to be disgusted? Disgusted? The silver dragon was confused. Disgusted by what? According to your thoughts, even if his goal for you is to reproduce, for the sake of the dragon god's bloodline, don't you feel disgusted and angry? Bicky was delighted. If she didn't feel disgusted, it meant that her master might have already developed feelings for Wang Feng? Why should I feel disgusted? The silver dragon looked at Bicky strangely. Soul beasts have to pass down their bloodline. This is their nature. I have the purest dragon god's bloodline. Passing down my bloodline is also my responsibility. Why should I feel disgusted? On the contrary, the dragon god's bloodline is extremely difficult to pass down, and it's very easy to mix up. Back then, the dragon god mated with many life forms to pass down his bloodline and gave birth to the 9 great dragon kings. If not for the 9 great dragon kings, the god war soul beast might not have been preserved. If our bloodline is strong, we naturally have to pass down our bloodline. This is our responsibility and obligation. Bicky, as a soul beast, don't you have that too? Therefore, it's the responsibility of my race to reproduce and pass down my bloodline. The dragon god's bloodline is still extremely difficult to pass down. Why should I feel disgusted? This is something I've considered a long time ago. Bicky. She had forgotten that her master was the purest descendant of the dragon god's bloodline. Bicky muttered. I naturally have this responsibility too. But why can you say these words so calmly, Master? P.S. No, I don't feel like I'm in a good state. I might wither. End of chapter. Chapter 1330. As the 11th round ended, the number of people decreased by half. Wang Feng originally thought that it would be a long battle, but he did not expect that Bicky would just come to issue a challenge and win easily. There were currently 16 people. They were all titled Douluo, and the summit tournament was coming to an end. Before the 12th round began, Wang Feng realized that he had achieved his goal of participating in the tournament. Right now, the audience was talking about soul renters very loudly. Even if he didn't become the champion, his influence as a soul charmer was like a seed that was planted in the boundless soil of the Federation. He just had to wait for the future to sprout. Wang Fengxin felt gratified at this point. 12th round. Today was the day of the youth group's championship. Before the match, Wang Feng encouraged Hui Yuhao and the others. Jiang Nannan hadn't fully recovered because of her martial soul, so she couldn't compete. They could only rely on Ma Xiaotao to lead the others. The team that Shrek Academy had sent out this year was only meant to train a few people. Hence, the academy didn't have many requirements for them to reach this stage. The youth group was held once every 5 years, so there were plenty of chances. Hence, compared to East Maple Academy's trump card team, their chances of winning weren't high. However, even if their chances of winning weren't high, this match was also very exciting. Perhaps the students of East Maple Academy wanted to experience the uniqueness of soul charmers, so they held back a little during the match, allowing Hui Yuhao and the others to unleash their full strength. Wang Feng, who was standing at the side, saw everything clearly. Hui Yuhao and the others didn't hold back either. 7 people and 7 soul-bonding beasts. Their soul power surpassed the average of 20 ranks, and they fought for more than an hour with East Maple Academy's team, almost ending in a draw. Unfortunately, the difference in soul power was too great, and East Maple Academy still won by a little. 5 years later, the youth group will probably be filled with soul charmers. As the youth group tournament came to an end, a few Heavenly Kings sighed. There was some anticipation and some worry in their voices. The appearance of soul charmers would definitely bring soul beasts into the lives of humans. Hence, many new laws and rules would have to be set in every aspect of the Federation. The mechanism of the various competitions and industries might change. In this society where soul masters were the dominant force, every industry and profession was inseparable from soul masters. Naturally, this was also the case for soul charmers. Of course, Wang Feng didn't care. This was the mission of the Martial Spirit Palace, and the responsibility of the Douluo Heavenly King. Wang Feng only needed to face his 12th opponent. In this round, Wang Feng met the man from the Illusionary Moonland's Illusionary Moon sect. Coincidentally, this was also what Wang Feng wanted to meet. A rank 99 titled Dalu. He was the favorite to win the championship. Look at how heaven-defying his luck was. In the round of 16, he encountered a seeded player. However, the top 16 were basically all titled Douluo, who were rank 97 and above. Green Jade and Wang Feng were the only ones with special strength. Even Di Tian and the Silver Dragon displayed soul power that was at least rank 98. In the arena, Wang Feng looked at the man. It had been a long time since he had fought a rank 99 titled Dalu. With Wang Feng's current strength, just relying on Long Xie and the others wasn't very likely. He would have to use the Origin Force and other mystical abilities to defeat it. In fact, this didn't mean much to soul charters. This was because Wang Feng was still using soul master techniques to defeat his opponent. Given Wang Feng's current situation, his soul power had improved over the past few days. He had risen by 2 ranks. However, the increase in soul power didn't have much of an effect on Wang Feng. As long as he reached the critical point, breaking the Godly King seal on his body would have an absolute effect. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to defeat a rank 99 titled Dalu. At this moment, the man didn't do anything. He only took out an item from his clothes. "My name is Huan Yun. Do you recognize this item?" The man from the Illusionary Moon sect asked slowly. It was an item that looked like a tear. It had a faint silver luster and gave off a gentle glow. It was very special. This was given to the sect by the Moon God 1,000 years ago. She asked the sect to take good care of it. Huan Yun said plainly. If anyone else saw this scene, they would find it very strange. Why didn't they fight for no reason? Why did they suddenly talk about this? Many of the soul masters who were watching the match were confused by what they were seeing. This Huan Yun was a typical person of few words. His strength was unfathomable, and he basically never spoke to his opponents during the competition. This made the Douluo Heavenly Kings curious. However, the Illusionary Moon sect was one of the few places in the Federation that had 2 god legacies. It was very special. Perhaps there were some strange rules. However, to Wang Feng, he frowned slightly. He naturally recognized the item in Huan Yun's hand. It was a replica of the pop tier. It was exactly the same as the one Wang Feng gave Zhu Zhuqing to save her. Zhu Zhuqing had inherited the Moon God and Wind God, so this item must have been given to the Illusionary Moon sect by Zhu Zhuqing. After the Moon God's high priest passed the test, the Moon God's will gave our Illusionary Moon Sacred Land this item. Huan Yun continued, "This item makes our Illusionary Moon Sacred Land denser than the outside world. It has various effects, but it can only last for 1,000 years. It protects our Illusionary Moon Sacred Land, and we also protect this item. However, we have never forgotten the Moon God's instructions." Huan Yun glanced at Wang Feng and said, "The Moon God once said that in another 1,000 years, A man will appear in the human federation and asked our illusionary moon's sacred land to give this item to him. Hearing this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. Did Zhu Zhuqing ask someone from the illusionary moon's sacred land to give this to me? Strange, when I went to the Isya sect in the extreme north, Ning Rongrong didn't ask the Isya sect to give me anything. 1,000 years ago. Wasn't that the time of the evil soul beast's outbreak? Wang Feng seemed to have thought of something. The Fifth Soul Beast War broke out more than 9,000 years after the establishment of the Federation. And according to what he had learned from the evil soul beast, the outbreak of the evil soul beasts was not only because of the fusion of the two continents and the fusion of the heaven and earth origin chi. There was another possibility, and that was because the dark demon realm attacked the Douluo continent. The god realm might have lost contact with the Douluo continent at that time. How do you know that the person the moon god is talking about is me? Wang Feng asked. Because your name is Wang Feng, and you come from the Star Battle God Mountain. Huan Yun said calmly. The moon god said that he must have come from the Star Battle God Mountain, and he will definitely overturn the world. Also, in our illusionary moon sacred land, there is a statue of you. If your appearance could be the same, but with so many similarities, it must be you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be saying this to you. End of chapter. Chapter 1331. Zhu Qing knew him very well, so it was not surprising that she knew this. Back then, before Wang Feng entered the Divine Mountain, he had told them the whole story. He reckoned that Huan Yun had been secretly observing him for more than 10 days. This is the reason why I came to the human society to participate in this competition. It's time, and I happened to have this opportunity, so I came out to look for the person the moon goddess mentioned. Huan Yun paused for a moment before he continued. Apart from that, there's also something about the soul demon. You haven't told me if you know this item, Huan Yun asked. Is that important? Wang Feng was puzzled. Since I'm the person designated by the moon goddess, why don't you just give it to me? It's important. Huan Yun nodded. The moon goddess told me that if you forget about this item, I don't have to give it to you. I can just destroy it on the spot. Wang Feng was speechless. However, I'm sure you know about this item, Huan Yun said after thinking for a while. It's called the meteoric tear, Wang Feng said casually. How could Wang Feng forget that Zhu Qing had used this item as a token? However, there was probably something special about this item that Zhu Qing wanted to tell him. Say it again. Huan Yun stared at Wang Feng. Do you want to take a closer look? The woven meteoric tear shone with a special luster. It looked exactly the same as the meteoric tear. Seeing this, Wang Feng was a little surprised. Could it be wrong? Isn't this called the meteoric tear? Wang Feng looked at Huan Yun in confusion. I'm sorry. Although the name is good, it's not right. You have 3 more chances. If you don't get it right, I'll have to destroy this item. Huan Yun shook his head. Wang Feng broke out in cold sweat. It shouldn't be. The meteoric tear was given to Zhu Zhuqing back then. It was very special, and she used it as a token. How could she change the name? For a moment, Wang Fengxin's mind raced. He recalled everything that had happened in the past and quickly tried a few more names. Crescent Violet Fragrance? No. Serene Moon Elf? No, you only have 1 chance. The moon goddess only gave you 3 chances. I won't count your first time. Wang Feng. Wang Feng was a little confused. Could it be that he had forgotten something important about Zhu Qing? That was impossible. His memories were still intact. Even the most important one, the meteoric tear, was wrong. In fact, it was impossible for the other ones to be correct. For a moment, Wang Feng felt a little depressed. Why are all these girls so complicated? This kind of secret signal really made Wang Feng speechless. If it wasn't accurate, why would he destroy it? Wasn't this clearly creating problems for him? Of course, Wang Feng knew why Zhu Qing did this. Her original intention was to see if Wang Feng had forgotten her. But even the meteoric tear was wrong. Wang Feng really did not know what to guess. Zhu Qing, what name did you give this thing? Wang Feng sighed helplessly. Could it be that he could only watch as this thing was destroyed? However, at that moment, Huan Yun suddenly said, "That's right." What do you mean? Wang Feng was confused. Oh, right? What was right? I didn't say anything. I said, you were right just now. Zhu Qing is the name of this thing. Huan Yun smiled slightly. Wang Feng opened his mouth slightly. He looked at Huan Yun in shock. However, after that, Wang Feng was stunned again. He suddenly realized that he had been thinking too much. Zhu Qing probably only wanted him to remember her name. Thinking of this, Wang Feng fell silent for a moment. She named this object after her own name so that Wang Feng would not forget her name after he woke up 10,000 years later. Wang Feng let out a long sigh. For a moment, he actually did not know what to say. Obviously, Zhu Qing felt very uneasy about the 10,000 years in the mortal world. That was why she used this as a secret signal. There was no need for any other complicated and symbolic signals at all. She just needed a name. Huan Yun walked over and handed the item to Wang Feng. Senior, this item contains a special seal that only you can unlock. The moon goddess told me that once this item is handed to you, don't hesitate to open it. You can open it without any hesitation. As for the competition, you are the person entrusted by the moon goddess, so I naturally don't dare to fight with you. Huan Yun said calmly. After receiving this item, Wang Feng seemed to be able to feel the longing of these 10,000 years. Of course, only a few decades had passed in the God realm. But it was still a very long time. Since Zhu Qing asked him to open it immediately, Wang Feng did not need to worry about anything. After all, Zhu Qing was a god, so she should have some means to block outsiders. After slowly injecting his soul power into it, Wang Feng discovered that there was a special seal inside. These seals were much simpler than the seals of the god kings. However, judging from these seals, Wang Feng felt that Zhu Qing should be very strong. Thinking about it, it made sense. Back then, after the baptism of the meteoric tear, Wang Feng used the red lotus hellfire to temper her physique to the extreme before sealing her. At the same time, she was given the former secret word and the former secret word. Not to mention how talented she was, after so many years, she should be able to cultivate some achievements, right? With that kind of strength, gods of the same level would probably be beaten to a pulp. Although the seal was not very powerful, Wang Feng discovered that the secret signal inside the seal was the meteoric tear. Thinking of this, Wang Feng found it funny again. After unlocking the seal, in an instant, this replica meteoric tear emitted a dazzling light. A huge energy fluctuation emerged from this replica meteoric tear. Amidst the endless light, only the lingering clouds appeared. All the soul masters seemed to have gone blind. They could not see the figures on the stage at all. Even the Douluo heavenly kings could not see anything clearly. Only the Shi Douluo frowned slightly. He seemed to have seen something. However, this did not cause much of a commotion. Everyone just thought that the two of them had started fighting. With Huan Yun's strength, it was very difficult for people to see clearly every time he attacked. At this moment, in the world enveloped by the light, the clouds quickly formed a woman. She was dressed in black and was tall. Her face was exquisite, but she exuded an extremely powerful aura. Streaks of green and silver intersected and flickered like rings on her body. It was Zhu Qing. However, it was only formed by a consciousness. To be precise, it was formed by the consciousness left behind. The figure was a little illusory. It was not focused. Wang Feng looked at this face and felt a mixture of emotions. Soon, this illusory figure spoke. Her voice was still Zhu Qing's cold voice, but there was a tinge of gentleness and joy in it. Wang Feng, since you can see my afterimage, it means that you should be awake now, right? and you didn't forget me." After saying this, the afterimage's voice suddenly became a little deeper. "However, since you can see my afterimage, it means that I am no longer in the God realm. I don't know if I will have the chance to see you again." Chapter 1332. Zhu Zhuqing left a strand of her consciousness in this imitation tear, and passed it to him through the people of the Mirage Moon Holy Land. Wang Feng had already guessed that the God realm had undergone a huge change. Otherwise, why would it be so troublesome? If she wanted to pass a message to him, she could have come to see him personally, or she could have asked someone to pass a message to him. However, a guess was still a guess. At this moment, after hearing Zhu Zhuqing's words, Wang Feng fell silent. The figure in front of him had changed a lot from 10,000 years ago. Zhu Zhuqing's appearance didn't change much, but her clothes, aura, and strength had changed drastically. The energy of the God realm was much stronger than that of the Douluo. Cultivating there for decades would naturally change. However, this wasn't enough to pull apart the gap between her and Wang Feng. The life laws he comprehended came from a higher dimension universe, at least stronger than the Douluo universe. It could even be said that once Wang Feng inherited the origin calamity God King and completely comprehended the life laws in that piece of life source, whether it was his main body or his clone, he could wantonly tamper with any life in the current Douluo universe. He would have supreme power. After a moment of silence, many thoughts flashed through Wang Feng's mind. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing's figure continued, "You might be very curious why I used this method to pass a message. I'm sure you've already guessed it. In the past 20 years in the God realm, the Douluo divine world was still in a peaceful state. Although there were battles between the gods, most of them were internal conflict. Under the jurisdiction of the God Realm Committee, the Douluo divine world was still very peaceful. It's just that many things have happened in the past 20 years. 3 years ago, many subordinate worlds of the Douluo divine world were suddenly attacked and blocked by another world. The Douluo divine world lost contact with many subordinate worlds, so the God realm naturally couldn't sit back and do nothing. However, this world had power that didn't lose to the Douluo divine world, and they also had the power of a god. Thus, a war between gods broke out. Zhu Zhuqing's few words were completely in line with Wang Fengxin's thoughts. It was more in line with the current situation of the Douluo continent. The Dark Devil world is very powerful and also incomparably cunning. They cut off the connection between the subordinate worlds of the God realm, causing many gods to lose their source of power. The power of us gods comes partly from our own strength, and partly from the faith of other living beings. But even so, it only reduced the strength of many of his fellow gods. It wasn't to the extent that they were completely powerless. Their goal is to weaken the God realm. After the War of the Gods broke out, we fought against the Dark Devil world. I don't think that our God realm will lose this war. It's just that I've never faced a true war between gods. Now I can understand what you mean by the difference in the hierarchy of life. Different levels of life, different powers, and different times were completely different. The committee said that even immortal gods can fall in a war of the gods. I don't know if I can survive this war, but I can't back down because Third Brother said that the Dark Devil realm's first suitable subordinate world is the Douluo world. Your side will be in danger. If the God Realm Committee doesn't fight this war, once the Douluo world is controlled by the Dark Devil world, you who haven't awakened yet will also be in a lot of danger. In order to protect the Douluo world, Third Brother let that Rakshasa god lead a few gods from the Douluo world to strengthen the seal of the Douluo world to prevent the large-scale invasion of the Dark Devil world. If the seal is successful, the Douluo world won't be harmed by the Dark Devil world. If it fails, it means that we can't break through the Dark Devil world's defense line. I don't know if I can still survive. When you saw Zhu Qing, I should have already set off with Rongrong and the others. As for you, you must have awakened as well and emerged from the divine mountains. Your plan with the other god kings should have succeeded as well. But at this time, our war with the Dark Devil world should have reached its end. The battlefield is either in the Dark Devil world or the God realm. It's incomparably dangerous. If you don't have absolute confidence, don't come to the God realm. At this point, Li Qie stopped talking. Zhu Zhuqing's image was already a little faint. This meant that the consciousness contained in this imitation meteoric tear was also gradually disappearing. Wang Feng could feel the emotions contained in these words. However, what Zhu Zhuqing didn't expect was that Wang Feng had walked out of the Divine Mountain in advance to see the current continent. Now that he heard Zhu Zhuqing's words, Wang Fengxin was a little more worried. Although Wang Feng believed that when he left back then, he passed on many things to Zhu Zhuqing and the others. Compared to the other gods, whether it was strength or life force, they were stronger. But it wasn't without danger. What was more unexpected was that they seemed to have strengthened the seal of the Douluo world. It made it difficult for the god-rank powerhouses of the Dark Devil world to enter this world. However, this also meant that they had a direct confrontation with the lives of the Dark Devil world. The result was unknown. From the current situation of the Douluo continent, they should have succeeded. Otherwise, it wouldn't be just some 9-ring soul demons that appeared. The outbreak of the God War was something that Wang Feng had expected, but he didn't expect it to be so fast. Wang Feng, Rongrong and I miss you very much. As the illusory figure gradually faded, Zhu Zhuqing's voice seemed to become much softer. Every day in the God world is very long. In fact, the social relationships here are similar to that of mortals. Many lives in the God world aren't real gods. Fortunately, the hearts of these lives are much purer than that of mortals, and the relationships are simpler. There are no countries or forces, only the division of God's territories, and the God World Committee to coordinate the order of the God world. Because of the powerful forces, order often only needs the 5 God Kings to control it, and it can allow the God world to operate stably. Therefore, it often doesn't need the complicated power structure of mortals. This place is also very good. Rongrong and I cultivate very quickly. You should be very curious why Lena hasn't visited you all these years, right? Although she was sent by the committee to look after another subordinate world after the Rakshasa god came to the God world, she disappeared. Before the outbreak of the God War, the committee didn't find any news about her. After the outbreak of the God War, Lena's news seemed to have appeared in the Dark Demon world. I don't know the details. Slowly inheriting the power of gods, and with the 2 cultivation methods that you taught us, we became very strong. The days of cultivation pass very quickly, but once we stop, time passes very slowly. We have fought with many gods. Rongrong might not have told you that she has almost become a violent person. She won't tell you this, so I will tell you secretly. She is the water god, one of the strongest gods in the God world. During the period when the illusory figure gradually disappeared, Zhu Zhuqing told Wang Feng many things about the God world. Some of them were things that Ning Rongrong wouldn't tell him when she came to see him. End of chapter. Chapter 1333. That angel god Qian Renshua left the Douluo divine world a long time ago. She didn't seem to be willing to face the Rakshasa god. It's really strange. They are mother and daughter. I didn't expect that they wouldn't bury the hatchet even after coming to the divine world. No one knows where she went. However, she came back on the eve of the divine war. She also became stronger. In these 20 years in the divine world, apart from cultivation, everyone has more or less left behind many other deeds. Speaking of which, maybe my consciousness is about to disappear. Before I disappear, I want to tell you that everything in the divine world is very good. The only bad thing is that you are not there. Wang Feng quietly listened to the long words left behind by Zhu Zhuqing more than 1,000 years ago. Perhaps only 7 or 8 years had passed in the divine world. Actually, 10,000 years was very long. However, 4 different life forms, 10,000 years was very short. 4 different intelligent life forms, 10,000 years could change everything, but it could also remain the same. Wang Feng's 10,000 years were very long and also very short. Even for Wang Feng, his body perception was less than a year's time. Wang Feng hadn't even woken up for a year. In total, it was only a few months. Because of the immersion of comprehending the law of life, Wang Feng forgot the speed of time and even forgot everything. Therefore, he felt that 10,000 years was very, very short. It was like taking a nap. Therefore, he didn't miss it as much as Zhu Zhuqing. After all, he only felt that it had been a few months. But in reality, it was very long. Even for the divine world, it was very long. At least, for Zhu Zhuqing and the others, it was very long. Maybe I have to go to the divine world to take a look or find a way to go to the dark demon world. Wang Feng looked at the disappearing figure. The longing in his heart grew deeper. But he couldn't be anxious. As the figure disappeared, the light fog also gradually disappeared. The surrounding scene began to appear again. Wang Feng stared at the replica meteoric tear in his hand. On the seemingly transparent surface, Zhu Zhuqing's smile flashed one after another. Holding it tightly and putting it away, Wang Feng looked at Huan Yun. "You saw the moon god?" Huan Yun asked. "Sort of." Wang Feng nodded slightly. "Since that's the case, I've completed part of my mission this time." Huan Yun gave a rare smile and handed the number plate to Wang Feng. He paused for a while and said, "Do you want to fight? I saw that you seemed to have the intention to train your soul-bonded beast. I can help you with this." "You're interested?" Wang Feng thought for a moment. "If you want, of course." Zhu Zhuqing's words made Wang Fengxin's heart fluctuate. However, given his temperament, it was naturally impossible for him to directly use the system's reward and go to the God realm just because of these words. With his clone's current strength and condition, going there would not be much effect. Furthermore, a year in Douluo was equivalent to a day in the God realm. Wang Feng had only spent a day in the divine world since he had left the sacred mountain. He was in no hurry to spend a few days in the divine world. "Of course," Huan Yun said slowly, "our Mirage Moon Holy Land might not accept the concept of a soul contractor, but we must know if we accept it or not. Our Mirage Moon Holy Land can have no soul contractors, but we must understand them. We don't participate in the changes in human society, but we must understand them." Wang Feng could not tell Huan Yun's age, but he knew that he was definitely very old. Since that was the case, Wang Feng would not reject him directly. With such a powerful experience monster, and the kind that he took care of, Wang Feng would not let Long Xie and the other two miss out. Hence, he directly released him. Following that, he let the 3 of them fight with Huan Yun. Huan Yun's martial soul was mysterious. It was a spatial martial soul. It could pull the enemy into a special space and kill them silently without them noticing. Not only would the enemy not know, but even the audience would not be able to sense it clearly. It was a very strange martial soul. At the same time, it also had a series of incredible soul skills such as spatial transfer, spatial transport, spatial compression, spatial expansion, spatial explosion, and so on. In fact, since the advent of Soul Tool technology, Soul Master's understanding and use of space had always existed. There were even Soul Tools that existed 10,000 years ago, such as spatial storage divine tools like the 24 moonlit bridges. It was important to know that these things could not be created in that era. The Soul Tools of that era were also left behind from ancient times. In the history of the Douluo continent, Soul Tool technology had existed for a long time, but it was still submerged in the system of martial souls. Until the rise of the Sun-Moon Empire on the other side of the continent. Only then did Soul Tool technology flourish among humans. Huan Yun's martial soul was a martial soul that used space to its fullest. It was very powerful. At the beginning of the fight, both Long Xie and Lin Lord Bingmu were at a huge disadvantage. The reason was simple. Once they were pulled into Huan Yun's martial soul, any form of attack could be transferred by Huan Yun. In the end, Long Xie's attack landed on Lin Lord Bingmu, and Lin Lord Bingmu's attack landed on Long Xie. At the same time, they would be attacked from unknown angles. It was very troublesome and difficult to deal with. Even after they got used to it, there were other suitable solutions. In addition to the concealment effect of the martial soul, it was difficult for others to see through it. Inside the space, danger lurked everywhere. In the end, they didn't gain any advantages. After all, Huan Yun was a rank 99 titled Doulu. His soul power was overwhelming, and his martial soul was very powerful. The three of them were no match for him. Of course, winning or losing wasn't very important to them. In a fight, gaining experience was the most important. For example, Huan Yun's martial soul was pulled into a space where even his five senses were lost. How he could continue fighting was the most important thing. Otherwise, everything would be meaningless. Therefore, they were only 30,000 years old at most. It was already very successful for them to be able to adapt and attack. Most titled Douluo couldn't fight after being pulled into it. Of course, part of it was because Huan Yun was suppressing his abilities. This gave them a chance to adapt. The concept of resistance wasn't just about elemental attribute. There was a concept of resistance in any type of fight. At a small level, it was a self-defense that one's body developed over a long period of fighting. From there, it gave birth to powerful abilities. At a large level, it was the concept of race genes. It was the evolution and mutation of life. Therefore, martial souls were always becoming stronger. After this victory, many of the spectators were very conflicted. This match was more like an exhibition match. Furthermore, most people couldn't understand it. This was especially so at the beginning. Only 2 people on the scene saw what happened in the replica meteoric tier. One was the Douluo. The other was the Silver Dragon. End of chapter. Chapter 1334. The Douluo's eyes reflected a pair of yin and yang fish that seemed to be rotating slowly. His gaze landed on the light fog on the stage and seemed to be able to see through the layers of barriers. The aura of a god? The Douluo's eyes flashed and returned to normal. Sister Shi, what's going on? Heavenly King Nan Yuan asked curiously. They're not fighting, but Huan Yun is acting weird. Does he know that person too? They should be catching up. The Douluo pondered for a few seconds before answering. The two of them really know each other? Heavenly King Yu was shocked. The Mirage Moon Holy Land almost never appears, and very few soul masters from the outside are able to enter. With this senior's age, Huan Yun can't possibly know him, right? He's not catching up with Huan Yun. He's talking to someone else. The Douluo shook his head. The Heavenly Kings pondered for a while and seemed to have understood something. Who is it? Heavenly King Nan Yuan couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. You have so many questions. The Douluo glared at her. I don't know either. Guess for yourself. Guess. Heavenly King Nan Yuan tilted his head and thought for a while. There are 2 gods behind the Mirage Moon Holy Land. According to the records of the Federation, apart from Sea God Tang San, there were a few other gods who became gods. However, there aren't any detailed records of which gods they became. If you want to guess, you should guess from the first Shrek, right? Based on my intuition, it should be a woman, Heavenly King Nan Yuan said. It's been a long time, and the Federation still has a clear record of this senior's deeds. Although all the official records only record her deeds, they don't talk about her personality or anything else. However, based on our research, this senior should be a legendary figure back in the day. She had a lot of love affairs. The Douluo. If Wang Feng heard this, he would probably break out in cold sweat. No matter which era it was, this woman's intuition was always so accurate. These heavenly kings were all very intelligent, and it wasn't difficult for them to guess. However, they didn't know what exactly happened. Only the Douluo saw part of it. On the other side, the aura of a god. The silver dragon looked on in surprise. That's impossible. The connection between the Douluo world and the divine realm has been cut off. How could a god send down his will? Did it descend a long time ago? Previously, she had been in a deep sleep to recover. Now that she had woken up, it was actually because the connection between the two had been severed. She also didn't need to worry about those god kings from the god world finding trouble with her. He didn't expect to be able to sense the aura of a god. It seemed to be very powerful. But what kind of god is it? What's his purpose in sending down his consciousness? The silver dragon frowned. She was too sensitive when it came to gods. Could it be related to the dark devil world? The silver dragon could only guess, but he could not be sure. Looking at the figure in the middle of the ring, he vaguely felt that the other party was becoming more and more confusing and mysterious. Until the end of the competition, she was even more confused. Ever since he came to human society, he had felt many differences. "My lord, what are you talking about?" Bicky asked doubtfully. "Nothing." The silver dragon looked at the screen for a long time and shook his head. "How many more rounds are there?" "After today's battle, it will be the top 8. There are 3 more rounds. If nothing goes wrong, my lord, you should meet him in the last round." I took a look. The remaining soul masters are very strong, but they won't be a match for you, Bicky said. 3 more rounds. The silver dragon probably felt that it was quite fast. "Actually, my lord, you can go directly to him. Anyway, there are only a few rounds left. He won't have any suspicions." Bicky looked at the sky and hinted. "Maybe he'll even be very happy. There's no need to meet him directly in the ring." "I still feel that, Bicky, you might have some misunderstandings about him." The silver dragon thought for a moment. "You might not be able to feel it, but I can feel that he's wary of me, or rather of us." "Impossible," Bicky denied. "He said it clearly to me in the ring. These 2 days I've learned that the words of humans are different from us soul beasts." The silver dragon said, "The same words can have different meanings in different people's ears. So, you might have misunderstood his words." Bicky felt that her lord wasn't willing to face it, so she didn't feel that she had misunderstood. Looking at the sky, Bicky said again, "My lord, you said that you don't dislike it. From your understanding of human emotions, let me ask you, if he's looking for you to inherit his bloodline, will you agree?" The silver dragon pondered for a few seconds and said, different races, how can we inherit the bloodline?" "It can." Bicky recalled the history of soul beasts. In the history of soul beasts, there are very few cases where soul beasts chose to transform and live with humans and gave birth to children. "Brother Tion, don't you think so?" Tion nodded and said, "That's right, there seems to be one at the scene. I vaguely felt a bit of aura. Cough cough, but I don't support it. It's different." The silver dragon shook his head and said, "Soul beasts transforming means that they have transformed into humans and recultivated. In essence, they are already humans. It's fine as long as the bloodline is preserved. Also, my lord, you can transform into a human now, but you're still a soul beast." "I'm an exception." "I'm talking about an exception," Bicky said. The silver dragon frowned slightly and looked at the sky. "The competition is over and it's already late. You have to rest well and prepare for tomorrow's competition. Let's talk tomorrow." With that, the silver dragon turned and left. "My lord, why did you change the topic on purpose?" Bicky followed and said with a smile, "Also, wouldn't it be better if it's a human? Think about it, my lord, you said that the stronger the bloodline, the harder it is to inherit it. Why? Because the stronger the bloodline, the lower the reproductive ability of soul beasts. But humans don't have that. The strongest thing about humans is their reproductive ability. Speaking of which, I have a bold idea. Put away your bold ideas. Humans and beasts are two different life forms. If you act recklessly, you will go against the laws of nature, and the consequences will be unpredictable. Tion listened to their conversation and thought, what bold idea. Thinking about it, Tion followed and lowered his voice. Bicky, tell me your idea. It's actually very simple. Since powerful soul beasts have a low reproductive ability, we can look for humans. Bicky said boldly. It's not like you don't know that a 100,000-year soul beast's bloodline will change. It's a pity that it's hard to pass it down. Otherwise, we soul beasts would be stronger than humans, especially your dragon ancestor. The dragon race that has the bloodline of a true dragon has a low reproductive ability. Bloodlines are extremely difficult to pass down, and if we mate with humans. End of chapter. Chapter 1335. Stop, stop, stop. Tion's scalp turned numb. By G, you're thinking too much. But don't you think that it makes sense? Bai Ji pursed her lips. Look at the 100,000-year soul beasts in the great star Do forest. How many of them have been passed down? The more precious a soul beast's bloodline is, the harder it is for it to be passed down, and the easier it is for it to be lost. Can't humans, who have strong reproductive abilities, pass down the bloodline of soul beasts? Tion was sweating profusely. Even though Bicky's logic seemed to make some sense at first, he still couldn't help but be speechless. Although Bai Ji's words sounded reasonable, Tion knew that they were twisted logic. Wang Feng didn't know this. After the tournament ended, Wang Feng returned to the hotel and continued to understand spiritual power cultivation method. After analyzing the idealism sex cultivation methods, Wang Feng had some ideas over the past few days. He roughly knew how to change them. After a few more days, he should be able to improve on the idealism sex spiritual cultivation method. It might not be suitable for everyone, but it was suitable for most soul masters. When that happened, Jiang Nanan's problem would be solved. 13th round. In this round, Wang Feng's opponent was Tion. It was unfortunate. The top 8 were in the 13th round. There were only 8 people left. Wang Feng had heard of Tion since 10,000 years ago. He had heard of him from Long Xie. He had also heard of him in the original novel. It was a pity that the Douluo continent had changed a lot. Wang Feng wasn't sure what kind of soul beast Tion was. Tion was dressed in black. He had a cold expression, and his hair was as black as ink. He was tall and imposing. His aura was like a mountain. In his human form, Tion was quite good-looking. Wang Feng felt that if Tion's hair was dyed red, he would look like Chong Lu from a television series in his previous life. He was very imposing. Long Xie, isn't this your nephew? Wang Feng asked. Why don't I let you spar with him? I've always heard you say that you wanted to do something to him. This is a good opportunity. Cough cough that, boss, I've expended a lot of energy over the past few days. I haven't recovered my strength today. I might only be able to unleash 1/10 of my strength. I've calculated. I might only be able to tie with him. That's why I'll let him off today. Long Xie said. Wang Feng, this coward. With Long Xie's current strength, he naturally couldn't beat Tion. Even though Tion was in his human form, he was still a 900,000-year soul beast in human form, and his cultivation hadn't completely disappeared. He could hang a 30,000-year-old dragon evildoer up and hammer it. I'll go. Tion. I am quite familiar with him. Qilin Lord Bingmu said. He shouldn't be using his full strength. Otherwise, he would be easily discovered. It was the same for many of his previous matches. After all, this is human society. If he were to display his full strength, he would be in a very bad situation. Wang Feng nodded. He wasn't afraid of Tion. Previously, Bicky had already issued a challenge on behalf of the Silver Dragon. This Dtion was probably here to test the waters. It was estimated that he would only use 20 to 30% of his strength to go through the motions and test his strength. Just as Wang Feng was about to release Qilin Lord Isimu, Dtion suddenly spoke. I've already seen your two soul-bonding beasts. To put it bluntly, none of them are a match for me, especially that mutated crag dragon soul beast. I only need 30% of my strength to make him lose his ability to fight with a single punch. Wang Feng opened his mouth. F***ck. This bastard is too arrogant. Long Xie was instantly enraged. He's provoking you. Boss, kill him. He's provoking you, not me, Wang Feng explained. I'm your soul-bonding beast. Isn't provoking me the same as provoking you? It's not the same. This is an internal conflict within the dragon race. Wang Feng suppressed his laughter and said, if you're a true dragon, you can fight him one-on-one. There's a saying that even if you lose, it's still an honorable defeat. Even if you lose, it's fine. However, this Dtion is a little similar to you. Even his tone is the same. They were both arrogant and arrogant. Of course, there were also some grudges involved. That's why I would like to invite you to fight. Dtion looked at Wang Feng and said proudly, I want to test your strength, not your soul-bonding beasts. They're not enough. Strength. Let's fight with pure strength. We'll decide the victor in one move. Dtion's thoughts weren't complicated. He couldn't reveal the strength of his soul beast. Once he used any of his soul beast's strengths or moves, it would be easily detected. If it was just physical strength, it would be very difficult to detect it. As long as they didn't use soul power, no one would be a match for a soul beast. Even though Dtion wasn't the dragon that was most proficient in physical strength, his cultivation was still far superior to any human soul master even in his human form. However, Dtion wasn't confident. This was the best idea he could think of. Alright. Wang Feng thought for a second and immediately agreed. Wang Feng felt that the silver dragon was purposely letting Dtion use this method to test him. This way Dtion wouldn't be exposed. One move to decide the victor. Boss, send him flying with one punch. Dtion isn't in his true form. He thinks that his physical strength is very strong and soul masters can't beat him. However, he didn't know that you. Long Xie was delighted. You must send him flying. Why do you look so happy when I send him flying? It has nothing to do with you. I feel very happy when I see him being sent flying. It's mainly because I don't like soul beasts with pure dragon god blood. The more miserable they are, the happier I feel. Long Xie chuckled. I don't really care if I'm the one who did it. Wang Feng shook his head. At this moment Dtion spoke again. Oh yes, there's something else. What is it? Dtion thought for a moment and subconsciously turned to look at Bai Ji. When he saw her glaring at him, he took a few steps forward and whispered, I have a friend who has a friend. After today's tournament, when the moon is high in the sky, she has something to discuss with you on the top floor of the Hongyu Hotel. She hopes that you can come. ? Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. Is the silver dragon going to lay her cards on the table early? Is she not going to waste any more time in the tournament? Or is she afraid that I'll lose on purpose? Is she afraid that I won't meet her? But why does she think that I'll go to such a banquet? Well, I have something on tonight. Wang Feng pretended to refuse. My friend said that if you refuse, you might not be able to achieve your goal. When Dtion said this, he paused. After he finished speaking, he started to sweat. A threat. This is definitely a threat from the silver dragon. Then Dtion changed the topic. If you can come, my friend said that you might be able to achieve your goal. Wang Feng was stunned. Does the silver dragon want to negotiate? After thinking for a few seconds, Wang Feng subconsciously glanced at the silver dragon. They could only see the silver dragon king looking at them with a calm expression. This made Wang Feng even more surprised. On the other side, there's something going on between them, the Ice Emperor snorted in the soul realm. Chapter 1336. Bing Bing, who are you referring to? Qin Yu was a little confused. Qin Yu was naturally aware of the aura of her own kind. She had discovered it a long time ago. It wasn't like she didn't know about Di Tian. Most of the 100,000-year soul beasts knew about him, except for those who were new. On the other hand, Qin Yu wasn't too sure about the silver-haired lady beside Di Tian. She must be very ancient. Otherwise, Di Tian wouldn't have been so respectful to her. I say, there must be something going on between them. Ice Emperor laughed coldly. That can't be right? Qin Yu was shocked. Both of them are men. I'm not talking about Di Tian. I'm talking about the silver-haired lady behind Di Tian. Ice Emperor said calmly. Although they hide it well, I can feel the interaction between their eyes. You've also noticed before that they seem to be paying attention to each other. Look, Wang Feng was looking at that silver-haired lady again. At this point, the Ice Empress continued in an eccentric tone. Men are truly all trash. They talk about how much they love and how much they like her, but in reality, they can't be loyal to just one woman. When they see someone prettier, their hearts will fly away. Qin Yu coughed a few times and asked, Are you talking about Wang Feng? Who else? Ice Emperor, are you feeling indignant for your sister? Qin Yu thought for a moment. He just took a look. Aren't you thinking too much? How is that just a look? He looked at her many times. Ice Emperor said disdainfully. They're still on the tournament stage. Who knows how many times they've been flirting with each other below the stage. Sister, I really don't know why you like him. Qin Yu immediately fell silent. It was best if she didn't interrupt. But don't worry, I'll help you teach him a lesson. Ice Emperor's deep voice sounded. I can't let him let you down. That's not right. Qin Yu thought for a moment and couldn't help but interrupt. If he has someone else in his heart, wouldn't you be able to snatch your sister back from him? I think you should add fuel to the fire and help him achieve his goal. That's right. Why did he have to teach him a lesson? Do you have any objections to my previous suggestion? Qin Yu had suggested that the Ice Emperor pretend to follow Wang Feng. That way, he could be together with the Snow Empress officially, and he wouldn't have to worry about anything else. No. The Ice Emperor immediately denied. I want to take my sister back. But I couldn't let my sister suffer. If she knew that Wang Feng had been fooling around while she was asleep, I don't know how sad she would be. Qin Yu shrugged. I have a feeling that you've misunderstood. I trust my intuition. Besides, the truth is right in front of my eyes. I think we have to rely on evidence. Human society is very particular about evidence now. Ice Emperor, this is just wishful thinking. Even if you want to use this excuse to teach him a lesson, it won't work. Qin Yu reminded him. You can't even suppress him in terms of aura. How can you teach him a lesson? Unless you can find real evidence, otherwise I won't believe you. He won't be afraid of you. From my understanding of humans, if he isn't afraid of you, it's useless even if you defeat him. On the contrary, if you can make him afraid of you, even if you can't teach him a lesson, he'll be afraid of you. That makes sense. Qin Yu, it seems like you've learned a lot after transforming into a human and recultivating. The Ice Emperor pondered for a moment, and felt that it made sense. I have no choice. Humans are much more complicated than us soul beasts. If I don't know too much, I won't be able to survive in human society. Qin Yu said helplessly. The Ice Emperor was deep in thought. Wang Feng didn't expect the Ice Emperor to have so many thoughts just by looking over there. Normal soul masters wouldn't have noticed his glance at all. What do you think? Di Tian put his hands behind his back and looked up. All right. Wang Feng felt that there was no good way. I'll go when the time comes. He was really afraid that the silver dragon would do something. Alright, make your move then. After Di Tian finished speaking, he seemed to heave a sigh of relief. His hands were flat, and even his shoulders drooped slightly. Wang Feng thought that the other party was about to make a move, and didn't notice this slight change. Wang Feng wasn't inferior to him in terms of pure physical strength. In the next moment, Di Tian's body suddenly erupted with an arrogant aura. Without using any soul power, his body was expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Purplish-black veins that looked like centipedes extended from Di Tian's arms to his neck, and even his cheeks. Di Tian took a step forward, and the entire arena seemed to be adjusted. Although it wasn't damaged at all, this strength shocked many soul masters. His black eyes had also turned pale gold, and there were even traces of scales on his skin. But that was all. An invisible aura surrounded Di Tian's body, and one could vaguely see that he was a huge dragon. Many soul masters couldn't understand how he could have such a terrifying aura and strength when his martial soul wasn't even revealed. However, many soul masters could tell that neither party was planning to use soul power in this match. They were planning to use pure strength. TSK, strictly speaking, that brat Di Tian doesn't belong to the strongest race among the direct descendants of the dragon god. He controls the power of darkness, and strength isn't his forte. However, dragons are dragons. His innate bloodline is so strong that Di Tian still possesses strength that countless soul beasts can't match. Long Xie said disdainfully, "The dragon god loved this dog a lot. When he was young, the dragon god even gave him many good things. He taught him many divine skills. He's probably using them to test your strength, master." "Oh? What's that?" Long Xie narrowed his eyes as he looked at Di Tian, who was charging at him as if he was going to shatter heaven and earth in the next second. "It's hard to say, but those things are all divine items. They've already fused with Di Tian. I think it's a special type of dragon bone," Long Xie guessed. Looking at his stance, it's probably a hand bone. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that he wants to compete with his physical strength. "Then I'd like to try." Wang Feng took a deep breath. The blood in his body seemed to speed up, and his heart was like a high-pressure pump as it spun rapidly. Wang Feng clenched his hand into a fist, and in an instant, a similar invisible wave of qi exploded around him. Time seemed to stop at this moment, and the two of them disappeared from where they were. Sonic booms could be heard in the air, and the air seemed to be pierced through by their high-speed movements. However, it was only the blink of an eye. A wave of surging aura exploded from the center of the arena. Clouds and mist rose with a rumble. End of chapter. Chapter 1337. Due to the collision of these two enormous forces, the entire arena produced a loud sound of machinery falling off. The soul tool components inside the arena were unable to withstand the immense force, and directly fell apart. Fortunately, the formation arrays were still stable. After all, the arena was a soul tool created by the Douluo. It wouldn't be destroyed so easily. However, the tremors in the arena continued to spread in all directions. The tremors that could be felt from hundreds of meters away caused many soul masters to subconsciously activate their martial souls. Fog rose into the air and blew past with gusts of wind. The figure inside was finally revealed. Di Tian's clothes were torn and tattered as he fell to one side. One of his arms was slightly red. Evidently, he was injured quite badly. However, Di Tian's expression was still calm, and he didn't move at all. Wang Feng's clothes were also torn and tattered, but his right arm was perfectly fine. One could even see a crystalline luster. What a strong physical body! Di Tian took his time to remove his number tag. "I've lost." After he finished speaking, Di Tian threw his number tag to Wang Feng before he turned around and left. Wang Feng looked at his number tag and furrowed his brow. He felt that something wasn't right. However, he couldn't tell what it was. That was because there didn't seem to be a problem. Tian's motive and reason for doing this were very obvious. When they clashed just now, Wang Feng didn't feel that Tian was holding back. Unless he revealed his true form, Wang Feng didn't dare to say that he would win in this clash of pure strength. What's wrong? Wang Feng touched his number tag and shook his head. He decided not to think about it anymore. There were only 2 matches left. Wang Feng didn't really care about winning or losing. If not for the Silver Dragon, he even wanted to leave early. On the other side, Tian returned to the Silver Dragon's side. His gaze first met Bicky's. They were like 2 underground workers, and seemed to have reached a tacit understanding. How are you going to compete with your opponent in terms of strength? Isn't this your style? The Silver Dragon asked. Is this your idea? What were the 2 of you talking about in the arena? Tian's expression didn't change, but a look of anger flashed across his eyes. Master, he said that he has something for me to tell you. The Silver Dragon was slightly startled. What is it? You seem very angry. Could it be that he intended to go straight to the point and lay all his cards on the table? Tian's face was a little gloomy and he said slowly. He said that when the full moon was hanging high in the sky today, he had something to discuss with Master on the top floor of the Swan Feather Hotel. The Silver Dragon seemed a little surprised. What do you mean? What else could it be? Tian harumphed coldly. Bicky's guess should be right. His target is indeed you, my lord. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made such a request. The Silver Dragon frowned and said nothing. Is that so? What if I don't go? The Silver Dragon asked after a few seconds of silence. He said that if you don't go, then you can forget about your purpose. Tian said solemnly. He was the one who created the Soul Contract Master, and he could easily change the relationship between soul beasts and humans. Master, the reason why you're looking for him is to change the relationship between humans and soul beasts. But Master, what you want is for humans and soul beasts to be equals. But the Soul Contract Master can make the relationship between humans and soul masters equal, and it can also make it unequal. The Silver Dragon nodded. I was furious. He was obviously looking down on and threatening you, Tian said coldly. So, I used this method to try and defeat him. Unfortunately, even if he doesn't use his soul power, his physical strength is too terrifying. He saw through my intentions. After he agreed to my request, he even said, Tian pointed at his arm, to give us a reminder. He only said that he had something to discuss with me. How did he look down on and threaten me? The Silver Dragon thought for a moment. If I don't go, he naturally won't know what I'm thinking. The relationship between soul beasts and humans can't be changed by him alone. The Soul Contract Master is a matter between 2 different races. Tian, was that what he said? Tian was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. He hurriedly said, That's right. That must be it. Baiji continued, Look, he chose to look for you at night. It's obvious that he's interested in you, Master. You have to know that in human society, even if the opposite sex wants to discuss something, they won't look for someone at night. Furthermore, it's in a hotel. Think about it. That makes sense. The Silver Dragon glanced at Baiji and his eyes flashed. Forget it. I'll go and meet him alone tonight. After speaking, the Silver Dragon looked at him a few more times before he turned and left. Tian watched as the Silver Dragon left. He heaved a sigh of relief once again. How was it? Baiji walked over and asked softly. I followed your instructions and told him, but he agreed. However, he agreed. Tian said in a low voice. This means that I guessed correctly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed. Basically, any human male would understand what this invitation means. Since he agreed, it means that he's interested in you. If he doesn't come, he'll miss the best opportunity. It'll be difficult for him to achieve his goal. Baiji said proudly, Furthermore, he'll definitely agree. When I spoke to him that day, I could feel from his words that he's determined to win you over. He won't give up such a good opportunity. But I keep feeling that this isn't good. Master doesn't know. If she knows, she might not agree to us doing this. Tian shook his head helplessly. Brother Tian, you're too slow. We're subordinates. We shouldn't always let Master give us orders. Bicky scolded. We need to know how to help Master do things that are hard for Master to do himself. We need to solve his problems. With Master's personality, she won't do something like this. But it is up to us, the subordinates, to comprehend it, and Gang Master will do it. Only then can we get things done. Furthermore, look, Master agreed. What does this mean? It means that Master won't reject him. Otherwise, when she heard that kind of threat, she would definitely reject it. Do you think Master will be afraid of any threats? Master didn't reject it, which means that she has such thoughts in her heart. My method is completely based on their choice. Tian didn't know how to refute. Whether it was what she said in the arena or what she said in front of Master, it was all Baiji's idea. He was a performer. However, it seemed that things were developing well. It was going in the direction that Baiji was thinking of. Let's wait and see tonight. Baiji smiled. Won't we be easily discovered if we follow? Tian said. Who said we have to follow? We just need to wait for the result. Baiji thought of the determination in Wang Feng's words and said softly, I believe that he won't miss such a good opportunity. Tian nodded. He didn't know why, but he had a bad feeling in his heart. The competition ended very quickly. On the other side, Qinyu, I think what you said makes sense. The Ice Emperor thought for a long time and said, I should find evidence. So, I plan to keep an eye on him these few days, especially at night. End of chapter. Chapter 1338. Nighttime. The Swan Feather Hotel was built right next to the Swan Feather Plaza. It was the largest and grandest hotel in the central district of Martial Spirit City. The exterior of the hotel was made of a special kind of rock. It was crescent white, and even in the middle of the night, it was incomparably bright. Under the moonlight, the Western-style buildings of the Federation appeared grand and magnificent. Standing on the top floor of the hotel, which was over 100 meters tall, one could see the entire Swan Feather Plaza. Qinyu sneaked out of her room at night. Under the urging of the Ice Emperor, she walked towards Wang Feng's room. Many of the Soul Masters participating in the tournament stayed in this room. As long as one paid attention, it wasn't difficult to find each other's rooms. This wasn't a secret. Ice, it's so late. There's no need to do this, right? Qinyu said helplessly. Of course there's a need. Didn't you say that humans like to do that kind of thing at night? Ice Emperor said in a deep voice. That's why we have a higher chance of finding evidence at night. There's a competition in the day, so he won't have a chance. As long as we come every night, we'll be able to find it. I don't believe that he's a decent man. Ice Emperor's tone was very certain. You seem to know him quite well. Qinyu couldn't help but laugh. Nonsense. Why would a decent man flirt with so many human girls? He already had a few girls before he met Sister. Ice Emperor said indifferently as he urged Qinyu to walk towards Wang Feng's room. Qinyu walked down the corridor under the bright yellow lights and looked at the moon outside. Today's moon was extra full. 2 more floors and we should be on his floor. With his spiritual power, he should be able to find us easily, right? Qinyu asked. No. From what I know, he's been researching something for the past 2 days. His spiritual power won't be able to constantly pay attention to the outside world. Ice Emperor thought for a moment. Aren't those people from the Shrek Academy his disciples? She was also a soul contractor. That day there was something wrong with the girl's martial soul. Think about it, that girl's martial spirit is a soul demon. It's impossible for him to ignore such a big matter. This means that there's something fishy going on. No, the more I think about it, the more I feel that he must have a new lover behind my sister's back. It seems to be true. Qingyu thought for a while, and then walked upstairs unhurriedly. The night was getting darker. However, for soul masters, especially high-ranking soul masters, sleep often meant meditation. There was no such thing as sleeping at night. From time to time, a few soul masters would walk through the corridor. Qingyu quickly walked up to the second floor. Just as he reached the exit, he saw a figure flashing by in the distance, walking on the net. "Hey, I think it's your brother-in-law," Qingyu said in a low voice. "Ha!" The Ice Emperor was stunned. At first, he was shocked, then angry, then overjoyed. Unfortunately, she was a scorpion and in the soul realm. He couldn't even see her Qing. "I knew it. Where was he going so late at night?" "Qingyu, let's go. Quickly hide your aura and follow him." The Ice Emperor snorted. Qingyu nodded. "Little Yen, help me hide my aura." Yes. Qingyu's soul power undulated slightly. A flame coiled around her waist, and her aura quickly disappeared. Although it didn't completely disappear, it was hard to detect if one didn't use their spiritual power to scan carefully. Qingyu tiptoed and followed. Not long later, she arrived at the top floor. The top floor was a skylight and there was a unique attic above. It was usually used for viewing. After all, this hotel was so tall. The top floor wasn't casually treated. Instead, it was used for entertainment and viewing. Compared to Swan Feather Plaza, this location had a wider view. Many soul masters and rich people liked to watch during the day here. It was night time now, and there was no one around. What is he doing here? Qingyu looked around. Hey, those two people. One of them seems to be the Great Star Do Forest's golden-eyed black dragon, Ditian, right? What are they doing here? That goes without saying. I think the silver-haired lady is having a secret rendezvous with him here. As his subordinates, they are here to act as guards, right? The Ice Emperor was very satisfied with his own guess. No, they seem to be sneaking around, Qingyu looked at the two people tiptoeing in the distance. Furthermore, their auras are much more concealed. Ditian and Baiji were in the distance. They seemed to be in the corridor that led to the top floor. At the same time, Ditian and Baiji seemed to have seen Qingyu. They were slightly stunned. The few pairs of eyes looked at each other and moved away in tacit understanding. Brother Tian, what are they doing here? Baiji asked softly. I don't know. It's so late. They are probably here to relax. Ditian glanced at Qingyu. This lady should be a soul beast that has recultivated. She can be considered one of us. Don't bother about her. It doesn't seem like they are here to relax. Baiji looked at Qingyu suspiciously. Qingyu immediately turned around and walked away. Fly out of the window and find a windowsill that is closest to the top floor. We will land on the windowsill. Qingyu quickly said. Otherwise we will be exposed. If they are really here to act as guards, we won't be able to get close. All right. Qingyu turned the corner of the corridor and jumped out. She flew half around the hotel and immediately found a windowsill. She stood on the windowsill and listened quietly. They would reach the top floor if they flew another 3 to 4 meters. They could vaguely see the decorations of the pavilion on the top floor. This position should be good. It's just right. We should be at the entrance, Qingyu said. At this moment, accompanied by the clear sound of the door opening, Qingyu was startled. She was in a hurry. Footsteps could be heard. From the sound of it, it must be Wang Feng. The Ice Emperor said confidently. It was indeed Wang Feng. Wang Feng calculated the time and looked at the sky. Since he had agreed to meet them, he would naturally come. He was even prepared for a big battle. The top floor was indeed a good place to admire the moon and observe the clouds. He pushed open the door to the top floor and saw a silver-haired woman standing under the full moon. From afar, she looked like a fairy. However, Wang Feng did not feel it. Wang Feng walked over calmly without the slightest hint of nervousness. When he was about 4 to 5 meters away from her, Wang Feng stopped. In your human language, should I say, long time no see? The silver dragon turned around, looking equally calm. I don't think so. Wang Feng was stunned. He thought for a few seconds. I don't think we have met before. Indeed, Wang Feng and the silver dragon had talked many times on the Star Battle God Mountain. However, Wang Feng was inside the mountain. Naturally, he could not have seen the silver dragon. Moreover, the silver dragon had not transformed at that time. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.